welcome you to the meeting of the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians. Today is May 17th, 2018. I need to establish a quorum, and so I'm going to do a roll call and then follow through with our order of procedure. Well, I start to my far left. If you'll introduce yourself, please.
Good morning, I'm Donna Norton, LVN member.
Good morning, I'm Paul Sellers, Psychiatric Technician member.
Good morning, John Deerking, public member.
Morning, Paula Amazola, public member.
Samantha James Perez, Psychiatric Technician member. Thank you.
And good morning. I'm Bernice Basti Martinez. I'm the Vice President of the Board. Our President is unable to be with us today due to a unchangeable, unfortunate schedule conflict, so I will be running the meetings today. We do have a quorum, and we will proceed as usual. We do recognize we have a number of students in the audience, and frequently we identify the schools. But in interest of time, we just want you to know we are very pleased you are here. This is a great opportunity to learn more about the profession you are entering, and we encourage you. Listen, learn, take note. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask one of our former serving military personnel, Donna, to please lead us in the pledge. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do officially have a quorum, and therefore, let's go on record. This meeting is being held Thursday, May 17th, 2018, at the Department of Consumer Affairs, located at 1625 North Market Boulevard. We are in the Hearing Room South, number 102, Sacramento, California. This meeting is officially called to order. Our order of business today, we do take public comment. And we do that during the meeting, and we generally call for public comment. It is welcome on any item. And if a person wishes to address the board, please come forth to the podium, give your name and the name of the organization you represent, so that the board will have a record of all those who appear before us. Please note that at that time, we will not be able to take up the order of in business anything that is brought before us if it is not related to an agenda item. To allow the board sufficient time to conduct scheduled business, the board may limit the time given each person who wishes to make a comment, which may be 3 minutes or less. So at the time of public comments, we ask you to keep your comments focused, relevant, and short. If I ever forget, which I might, to ask for public comment on an agenda item, please note it's not because I intended to eliminate or limit comments. It's just I was in a rush. So please approach, raise your hand, and I will recognize you. Our first order of business are petitions, and we will turn it over to our presiding judge. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, Ms. Basta Martinez. My name is Jonathan Liu. I'm an administrative law judge with the State Office of Administrative Hearings. This morning and perhaps in the early afternoon, we have 7 petition hearings. They include petitions for reinstatement of revoked licenses, as well petitions for early termination of probation and for modification of probation. I've had opportunity already to meet, I believe, all the petitioners, and they've also had opportunity to meet with the Deputy's Attorney General, and hopefully you have a pretty good idea of how we'll be proceeding this morning. Per the agenda, we will be handling the petitions for reinstatement first. We will consider the cases in alphabetical order. Representing the Department of Justice for, I believe, the first 4 petitions will be Deputy Attorney General Melissa N. Siementel. At this time, I'd like to invite Ms. Cynthia Cameron to come forward. Cameron, good morning. Have a seat. I want to make sure the microphones in front of you both are on. There's a little green light that should be on. There's a typo. Your name is Cameron, right? Yeah, okay. Cameron, did you bring any additional documents that you did? All right. Do you have copies for all the board members? Could you provide them each one, please? Thank you. Siementel, are you ready?
Yes.
Board members, we're all ready? Okay. Reporter, let's go on the record, please. We are now on the record in the matter of a petition for reinstatement of revoked license. The petitioner is Cynthia Jeannie Cameron, and this has the Office of Administrative Hearings case number 2018-050117. And it involves vocational nurse license number VN 136625. Appearing on behalf of the Department of Justice is Melissa N. Siementel, a Deputy Attorney General, and Ms. Cameron is present and appearing on her own behalf. What we will be doing in these proceedings, I will invite Ms. Siementel to provide board members with a brief summary of the history of this case. When she's done providing that summary, Ms. Siementel, I would like to administer an oath to you and invite you at that time to add any additional comments that you have to board members. As I had indicated earlier when we were off the record, it's not necessary for you to go through everything. Rather, it's important that you highlight those matters that you believe are most important for the board members to consider and reviewing your petition later this afternoon. When you're done, I will ask Ms. Siementel if she has any questions on cross-examination, and when she's done, I will be asking board members if they have questions. At the end of this hearing, you'll have an opportunity to do a summation if you wish, and then we'll go off the record. You have any questions?
Pardon me. We had a board member join us, and before we start, we want to make sure you introduce yourself and to establish that you are here for the complete presentation.
Yes, I apologize for being late. The reception sent me to the other building. Alita Carpenter, public member.
Thank you.
I apologize to our witnesses.
I recognize that when we were off the record that board members had made brief, I'll call it appearances, but that wasn't made on the record. If I could trouble you, please, to go around quickly and state your name. We'll go from there.
Samantha James Perez, psychiatric technician member.
I'm Bernice Basti Martinez, Vice President of the Board, public member.
Paula Amazola, public member.
John Deerking, public member.
Paul Sellers, Psychiatric Technician member.
Donna Norton, LVN member.
Thank you. Mattel.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Melissa Seamantle, Deputy Attorney General. I am appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government and Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I am here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I am here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. Previously provided to Judge Liu are the exhibits that we are asking to introduce. The packet contains the petition for reinstatement dated October 18th, 2017, with 4 letters of support, 1 continuing education certificate, and a court order granting a petition for dismissal in that court case pursuant to Penal Code Section 1203.4. The packet also contains a license certification for petitioner, notice of hearing and related correspondence, and the stipulated surrender of license and order in board case number VN-2011-1202. We are asking that the documents be admitted into evidence.
I've marked this as Exhibit 1, and 1 is in evidence.
As a brief background, petitioner was issued by the board vocational nurse license number 136625 on June 15th, 1997. On October 11th, 2013, an accusation was filed by the board in case number VN-2011-1202 for violating terms of the Vocational Nursing Practice Act by unlawfully obtaining, assisting in obtaining, aiding and abetting the obtaining of narcotics and dangerous drugs by false prescriptions and refills, also for acts involving dishonesty related to the functions of a licensee, and also for unlawfully obtaining, possessing, prescribing, administering, or furnishing controlled substances. The circumstances are that on or about between 2010 and 2012, petitioner filled various false prescriptions for hydrocodone, a controlled substance, at various pharmacies. The prescriptions were listed from 4 different doctors. The prescriptions were filled for petitioner and her husband. On January 8th of 2015, petitioner's license was ordered surrendered by a stipulation. The decision became effective on February 7th, 2015. The stipulated surrender of license and order included cost recovery in the amount of $5,075. Because the burden is on petitioner, I have no further statements, but would reserve the right to question petitioner.
Thank you. Cameron, would you raise your right hand, please? You swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. You have to speak up. Why don't you pull your chair all the way up and pull the microphone down? So, are you comfortable that way? I still can't hear you.
Yes, sir.
Where's our audio person? Are we good? Okay. Take a deep breath and share whatever you have on your mind today with the board members, please.
The honor of obtaining my nursing license in 1997. I was very proud to have obtained the license, and I dishonored the license and myself. I'm very, very sorry. I've done everything I possibly can to make it right. I have done everything I possibly can to make it right.
Ms. Cameron, this morning you brought with you a packet of documents. Could you briefly indicate what's in there?
I have my cover letter. I have my dismissal of charges. I have letters of recommendation. I have my resume. Continuing education and my CPR and first aid card copied.
Thank you. I've marked it as Exhibit 2. Any objection to 2 coming into evidence?
No.
Right. 2 is in and will be considered by board members. It might be helpful for more specific questions to be posed of you, and I'm going to ask at this time that Ms. Simontel do that. All right?
Thank you. Ms. Cameron, you just stated that you have done everything to make it right. Can you please explain what you have done?
I spent 3 months in a sober living facility. I attend 12-step meetings once a week. I've done that for the last 4 years. I have been contributing. I've been helping my neighbor with his father. I worked as a house manager, assistant house manager at the sober living facility. I have been sober. I have not been illegal.
As the house manager of the sober living facility, what are your responsibilities?
Responsibilities were making sure that the clients were breathalyzed. We did drug tests. I was responsible for transportation to and from doctor's appointments, transportation to and from meetings once a week or every day, making sure that they followed the rules of the house.
In regards to your attendance at 12-step meetings, are you currently working through the 12 steps?
I finished my 12 steps and I continue to do my service. I have a sponsor that I meet with once a week. She's in Illinois, but we meet over the phone. She moved. I have
So
sorry, I'm very nervous. I'm just
you said that you meet or you speak with your sponsor once a week over the phone.
correct.
And you said that you have worked through the 12 steps, and are you continuing to work through the steps?
Yes, I am every day.
Have you or are you currently holding any positions at the, I don't know if you attend the same 12-week or 12-step meetings, but do you have any positions that you've held?
No.
Are you sponsoring anyone currently?
No.
You state in your employment or in the employment section of your petition that you fill in as needed at LCS. Can you please tell us what LCS is and what duties you fill in for?
The LCS is La Casa Solutions for Women, and I fill in as assistant house manager when needed.
And those are the duties that you previously told us about?
Correct.
In your petition packet, which are the letters that were admitted into evidence in Exhibit 1, the letters that you provided are from 2012 through 2014. And one of those letters is from Dr. Pantovich, dated April 30th of 2012. Was Dr. Pantovich aware when he wrote the letter that you unlawfully filled 2 prescriptions and refills for a controlled substance from under his name in July of 2011?
Those were not unlawful prescriptions. Those were valid prescriptions. I would have him sign a letter, but he passed away.
You would have him sign a current letter, or
Correct, but he passed away.
in regards to the letters that you provided with your petition packet that are from 2012 through 2014, could you please tell us why the letters of support were written, some of them prior to the filing of the accusation?
The letter from Dr. Panovich was written when I was looking for a different job for a different doctor. Which other ones are you speaking of?
There is a letter that's dated 2012 from Dr. Pantovich, dated April 30th of 2012. The accusation was filed October 1st of 2013. For the circumstance under which Dr. Pantovich wrote that letter?
Yes, when I was looking for a different job. I was working for Dr. Panovich 3 days a week, and I needed a full-time position due to my divorce.
You stated in your petition that you received 3 felony convictions. What were the violations that you were convicted of?
Convicted of forgery of prescriptions, in possession of controlled substance.
Were the convictions based upon the same circumstances stated in the accusation that was filed by the board in this matter?
Yes.
You were placed on 3 years of probation based upon your criminal case? Is that correct?
Yes.
When did your probation end?
2 years ago, I think it was May 16th.
Did you obtain the controlled substances for personal use?
Yes.
Do you consider yourself an addict?
Yes.
You stated that you attend a 12-step meeting approximately, I think you said 2 times a week, is that correct?
2 or 3.
How long have you been attending 12-step meetings?
Since, 2014?
Do you have a sobriety date?
2013.
If the board grants your petition for reinstatement, do you have plans to pay the cost recovery that was ordered?
We do.
Have you been convicted of any offenses since you submitted your petition for reinstatement?
No.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. At this time, board members, I will start on my right. Do you have questions?
Not at this time, thank you.
Carpenter? James Perez?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. I have a couple questions for you. I know the same packet that we have, you also have in front of you. Those are the documents you submitted to the board.
Yes, I do.
And if you want to look at page A6, that's your petition for reinstatement.
Yes.
And when the Deputy Attorney General right now had asked you your sobriety date, I believe you said 2013.
Correct.
On page A6, under what is your sobriety date, it says September 2010.
Been mistaken.
So in fact, your sobriety date is 2013.
Correct.
Do you have a date or
It was May.
Said that you have a sponsor and you
Yeah.
meet one time a week by phone. I think you included a letter from your
Correct.
sponsor here. What are you guys working on? Did you speak with her this week?
I did. She's in Illinois. She was my sponsor when I was living in La Casa Solutions for Women.
And what are you guys working on right now, like this
We're
week?
working on the book called Drop the Rock, and I'm working on how to get rid of my shame and forgive myself and stay true to my sobriety.
And I noticed that when you received the original accusation, and then in 2014, you surrendered your license instead of going to a hearing such as this.
Correct.
Why did you choose to surrender your license instead of maybe fight to keep it?
I was in a really, really bad time, and I felt really violated by Mr. Ross' death. I did not want to face him again. He humiliated me.
Who's that?
Scott Rosdeath of the Department of Consumer Affairs, and I was just in a spot where the attorney told me there's no way you're going to win this, and it's probably better for you to surrender your license because you're probably going to have it revoked.
In the original accusation, there is a description of the prescriptions that were called in fraudulently. And it can be found on pages D12 in your packet, D12 and D13. Let me read from it and see if, so it says that you, all the prescriptions you called in, it looks like were for Vicodin.
Correct.
And they were from Dr. Fournier, Bennett, Pantovich, and Nagali, is what it says in the accusation.
The only fraudulent prescriptions I called in were from Dr. Fournier. All my other prescriptions were they were valid.
It says 13 prescriptions by Dr. Fournier, 2 from Dr. Panovich, 1 from Nagali, and 25 from Fournier. That's what it has in our accusation.
I'd say that's correct.
And these were called in under your husband's name,
Correct.
but they were for your use.
Correct.
And then this board is tasked, and it's our duty to protect the public. And if we were to reinstate your license, we would want to be sure that this kind of behavior wouldn't occur again, obviously.
Correct.
And I've heard you talk about that you're working through some feelings of shame you might have. And in your statement, your petition for reinstatement, you do say that the conduct you exhibited was unprofessional and demoralizing to yourself. But what I'm wondering is, do you understand as a nurse why calling in prescriptions for your own use is wrong?
Absolutely.
Why would you say that that's wrong?
Because it's feeding a habit that you need to not feed.
And how many meetings a week do you still attend?
2 to 3.
Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Help us understand what's different about you now than at the time you followed an attorney's recommendation. I hope I heard that right.
Correct.
To surrender your license.
Yes. I was going through a really, really hard time. I was going through a divorce, and I was obviously unemployed, and I didn't feel I was strong enough to fight this on my own, and I could not afford an attorney.
Thank you. Back to your sobriety date. You gave us a month and a year, and we discerned that there was something different in writing. Help us understand why you are not focused on a specific day, because it's somewhat like a rebirthing.
Correct. When in 2010, I stopped drinking. And I didn't start my steps until 2013 when I started working with a sponsor, and therefore that is why I call that my sobriety date.
If you were to have your license reinstated, you've talked about why you believe the board should do that. What will you be doing specifically?
I would specifically like to work with elderly people. I've been helping a neighbor with his father right now, his father's at home and his mother has dementia, and he's the only person that's able to care for him. So I've been going over there once a week, and I really enjoy being able to give to people who are most in need of help.
Regardless of where that might lead you in terms of a position.
Correct.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Ms. Cameron, good morning.
Good morning.
Let me ask, what advice would you give to anybody who may be present today or may be viewing this by webcast when he or she is caught in the throes of addiction?
I would tell them to respect your license, respect yourself, and don't do anything that would jeopardize yourself, your life, your license.
And then, of course, there's a breach of trust element.
Correct.
Because of your special relationship with patients.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I haven't heard you talk about that particular piece.
My relationship with the patients.
Well, the breach of trust associated with holding a license. Would you consider calling in fraudulent prescriptions a breach of trust?
Absolutely.
The breach happens with respect to what parties?
To the physician, myself, and the patient.
And what about the doctor?
Well, the physician is the doctor.
Right? Oh, I thought you said position.
No,
I'm sorry.
physician.
Okay, I got it. One of the things that I look for when we consider the rehabilitation of a licensee is removing oneself from destructive elements. Okay, sobriety is a big piece, and what troubles me is the two different sobriety dates. Do you consider sobriety from alcohol different from sobriety from narcotics or other drugs?
No.
So what is the explanation, once again, regarding the two different sobriety dates?
My sobriety date in 2010 is when I stopped drinking alcohol, and then when I moved into my sober living facility with my sponsor, I considered that as my sobriety date when I started my 12-step program.
Okay, and do you have the actual date?
May 17th, 2014, 2013.
I heard you touch on how you're different now, and our concern, of course, is whether a licensee under these circumstances would be a safe practitioner. What have you done differently now?
I've cleaned up my life. I'm in a stable place right now. I've been working with my sponsor. I no longer feel lonely, depressed. I'm just in a better place. I was in a really bad marriage. My children were, growing up and leaving the house. It was just a really difficult time for me.
Okay, and part of the destructive elements, of course, is being aware of your own triggers.
Correct.
You indicated you were in a bad place, a touch of depression, perhaps. What triggers do you believe that you have that would further involve you in narcotics use?
I don't have any triggers anymore when it comes to that. Like I said, I was just in a bad spot. Like I said, I was going through a divorce, and I don't know if you've been through it, but it's horrific.
Okay, so if you don't have any triggers, and you were in a bad spot. Bad spots happen all the time in life, right?
Correct, but that was my deepest, darkest spot I've ever been in my entire life.
Okay, so.
And I was able to drag myself out of it with the help of my sponsor and my family, and I feel very stable right now.
Okay, how about if in the future you don't feel quite stable? What are you going to do differently? How are you going to handle yourself differently that will not involve you in narcotics use?
But pray, be with my sponsor, I have family support. I just really feel that I would rather cut off my foot than to ever, ever, ever do something like this again.
Thank you. I have nothing else, Your Honor.
Thank you. I have no questions at this time.
Norton?
Morning. I just want to follow up on one thing. Just forgive me because I think a couple of people have asked you before. Do you need a minute, honey? This is very difficult and you're doing very well.
Go ahead.
My concern is that in 2010 you stopped drinking,
Correct.
but started taking Vicodin. And I think you started taking the Vicodin because it was prescribed for you for some pain. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you continue taking it because why?
I think I went into that. I was in a bad spot. I was addicted to it, and I didn't really, it was just too easy.
Did it make you, it made you feel less lonely? It made you, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but why did you continue taking the Vicodin? It made you...
Because I was an addict.
Okay. Do you see that giving up one addiction for another addiction is still addiction?
Correct.
Okay. And I think I'm following up on what Mr. Deerking was trying to get to is like, what have you learned about yourself and the reason that you go from addiction to addiction that's going to help us feel comfortable that you have tackled the addictive behavior?
I've been sober. I have not taken any, I had surgery and I didn't take any medication. I absolutely will not ever, ever take prescription medication again.
Okay, so that was new information, so that's good. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Yes. You mentioned that the prescriptions that Dr. Pontovich had prescribed for you were legitimate prescriptions.
Correct.
Were they to deal with your migraines that you allude to in your letter?
Yes.
Are you still experiencing migraines?
No, I take Advil.
Thank you.
I want to make sure I heard right. The sobriety date was 2013?
Yes,
May 7th?
May 17th, 2013.
Other questions, board members? All right. At this point, I'm going to invite you each to make a closing summation. That's optional. I'll start first with Department of Justice.
No, thank you.
Wish to add anything?
I just want to be able to get my life back and practice nursing again and take care of people as I always have. I really believe that I could be an asset to any establishment who chooses to hire me and trust me.
Thank you very much. The board appreciates very much your coming here today and testifying, and we'll review everything that you've submitted before reaching a decision. Off the record. All right, as we're finishing this, I would invite Ms. Lim to come forward.
Your Honor, may I have 60 seconds?
Pardon me?
You have 60 seconds to step out of the room. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, while we're off the record, petitioners, if you brought with you today extra documents, you need to have a copy for each board member, and I'd like you to collate them, and just before going on your case, we'll distribute them to all the board members. If you don't have those copies, why don't you run outside, and if you can't do it in this building, maybe you can make copies elsewhere. Okay. Board members, we've provided you copies. They are not redacted copies. The official one that was lodged with me is redacted. So just be sensitive to that fact.
Does that relate, Your Honor, to the petition for reinstatement?
Original petitions should all be redacted. It's the additional ones that they did not necessarily redact.
Well, the reason I raised that is because at A1, there's the indication probably should be redacted.
That has been redacted in the copy that's been provided to the judge.
Okay, are we all ready? Do you have everything you needed? Good, and we're all here. Thank you. Let's go on the record, please. Good morning. We're now hearing the matter of a petition for reinstatement of revoked license. The petitioner is Ms. Christina Lim. Good morning, Ms. Lim. Ms. Lim, this has the Office of Administrative Hearings case number 2018-050115. It relates to vocational nurse license number 232597. Appearing on behalf of the Department of Justice is Ms. Melissa Simontel. A quorum of the board is present. Lim, you had opportunity to watch the first hearing, so there's no mystery about what we'll be doing and the procedures that we'll be following. With that, I would ask at this time for Ms. Simontel to provide board members, please, with an overview and summary of this case. Thank you.
My name is Melissa C. Mantle, Deputy Attorney General. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I am here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. The packet that has been previously provided consists of the petition for reinstatement dated August 30th, 2017, with a pharmacy technician wall certificate and a bill statement for individual psychotherapy services, petitioner's license certification, notice of hearing and related correspondence, and the stipulated surrender of license and order in board case number VN-2010-414. In regards to a brief background, the board issued petitioner vocational nurse license number 232597 on February 25th, 2008. On December 12th of 2012, an accusation was filed by the board in case number VN-2010-414 for gross negligence and failure to perform basic nursing skills. I will use the patient's initials to protect the patient's identity, and it's my understanding that the board members received the packet that in the petition application had the patient's name. I would ask that it be redacted to comport with a copy given to the judge, which contains only the patient's first initial and last initial. On or about June 22nd of 2010, petitioner cared for patient MG. Patient MG had a history of spinal muscular atrophy, and as a result, MG was assisted by multiple machines and received in-home care. On or about June 22nd of 2010, Petitioner first had experience providing care for MG. Petitioner arrived at MG's home at 10:15 p.m. to orient herself to MG as her patient prior to the start of her 11 p.m. shift. At approximately 6 a.m., Petitioner administered medications and feeding to MG through the G-tube and observed MG to be lethargic and different. The pulse oximeter reading was either 90 or 92%. At 6:30 a.m., MG was unresponsive and his pulse was thready. At approximately 6:45 a.m., MG's pulse oximeter began alarming and his heart rate was dropping. Petitioner did not record any vital signs. Petitioner disconnected the ventilator and administered 2 breaths using the ambu bag. At 6:55 a.m., the doorbell rang and Petitioner reconnected the ventilator and went to the door to let in the oncoming LVN. At 7 a.m., the oncoming LVN found MG unresponsive and a faint pulse, and the pulse oximeter machine was alarming. Petitioner told the oncoming LVN, "It's been about 10 minutes since I got a pulse." The oncoming LVN instructed Petitioner to call 911, and the oncoming LVN moved MG to the bed, from the bed to the floor to start CPR. Paramedics arrived and MG was transported to the hospital where resuscitation efforts were administered in the ER without success. MG had been examined by a doctor during the week before his death and was not ill. All life-sustaining equipment and monitoring systems in use for MG in the home were determined to be operating properly. On December 19th of 2013, Petitioner's license was ordered surrendered by stipulation. The decision became effective on January 18th, 2014. The stipulated surrender of license and order included cost recovery in the amount of $12,490.25. Because the burden is on Petitioner, I have no further statements, but would reserve the right to question Petitioner.
Thank you. Let me indicate that I've marked as Exhibit 1 the petition and as Exhibit 2 the supplemental documents that were provided to board members today. No objection to 1 and 2?
No.
Both in. Your hand. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Bring it close. You can move forward as well. I'd invite you to make an opening remarks to board members prior to questions being posed by our Deputy AG. May begin.
At the time that I had cared for MG, I had problems in my personal life, and I've since resolved those personal problems and those personal matters. Excuse me. I felt in retrospect that I should have asked for more help and should have had more training or had more background.
I can hear you, but barely.
Okay.
So would you move a little closer?
And the RN that was, the assigned RN, I should have communicated more. And I've taken courses now, and I've taken training and additional education to be more aware of the situation and know what to do at the time, and to ask for help and to get help when needed. To respond appropriately and timely. Since that time, I've taken advanced courses, more for RNs, but I've taken ACLS, PALS. I've also updated my basic life support and first aid. I have been working as a pharmacy technician, and I had previous experience as a DSP worker within these 4 years, and I've also working. I've also worked currently, or previously, I'd worked in a rehab facility, working with detox clients who are in active rehabilitation, and I've also attended therapy to handle the emotional impact of the case. And I've also gotten background information and obtained more background information in terms of the client's condition. I would like to say that he was healthy, but he was also a child with a condition of Wernicke-Hoffman's, which is a specific type of muscular dystrophy. The life expectancy of those children was 13 months. This child was 13 years old. I'd like for the board to take that into consideration. Since that time, I've also worked on my interpersonal skills and with communicating with family members and staff members. I felt that there was also a problem with communication at the time as well. There was also communication with the documentation as well. My documentation may have not been the most consistent, and so I'm currently taking courses to effectively document appropriately and document more elaborate detail and more specific as to my care and my scope of practice.
And would it help you if we had questions asked of you?
Well, I'd like to add that I've recently worked in a rehab facility as well, and then I've worked caring for people in detox, and I do work with some emergency situations, and so I've had practice in terms of responding effectively and appropriately and behaving in a professional manner, providing care in the scope of practice of an alcohol and drug counselor, which is not nursing but is similar to the role of an LVN. In the rehabilitation facility, we do handle a lot of responsibilities similar to what an LVN performs, and I worked in emergency situations as well, recently. So, and I've had good recommendations from my previous employers as well, current and previously.
Very good. Ms. Seamantel will have some questions for you.
Stated that you have worked in emergency situations. What type of emergency situations are you referring to?
In some instances, I worked with clients who were in detox and their level of care had to change, and we've had to transport to the ER or transport clients to hospitals and doctor's appointments, and I've had to acknowledge different changes in condition and changes of care, changes in vital signs, particularly acknowledge when there's an emergency situation or there's a distress situation. We've had to have more practice with notifying staff and notifying the correct entities in terms of transferring the client to a higher level of care.
When you stated that you had to transport someone to the ER, what type of situation was that, to where someone was taken to the ER versus having an ambulance called?
Well, there were some clients that had active panic attacks that were going into an acute condition, and there were times where we were, where we acknowledged distress in terms of extreme fluctuations in vital signs, and there were other times where clients had a change in condition where they had ingested large amounts of substances, vital signs were not fluctuating majorly, but they have to be cleared medically to come back to our facility once they've had a changing condition in terms of might be a moderate to injury, major injury, or if the saturation had went a little bit lower than normal in the baseline, but they're still alert and oriented. They had severe withdrawals or side effects during their detox phase.
Looking at the incident with patient MG, you had stated that the RN should have communicated more. At least that's what I heard. Is that correct?
No, I feel I should have communicated more with the assigned RN. I feel like I should have touched bases, and there should have been more availability. Well, I mean, the only change is if there's a treatment team versus, with RNs and RTs available for situations like this to advise us at this time. As an LVN, there are certain areas we didn't cover in terms of emergency, and this is why I had taken pediatric advanced life support. I had taken advanced cardiac life support so I can quicker acknowledge these emergency situations.
You provided the board members with what you said was additional background information on the patient and asked that the board take this information into consideration. Why should the board take this information into consideration?
Well, the life expectancy of the child far exceeded his stated age at the time.
Why was that information something that the board should consider?
He was a child with muscular dystrophy, and their life expectancy is not 18 years usually. During his transport, or when he was revived. I don't have anything else.
I didn't want to stop you if you were still speaking.
Yeah.
Looking at the additional letters that you provided this morning of support, are the individuals who wrote the letters of support aware of the circumstances in the underlying case that led to the surrender of your license?
Yes.
The decision adopting the stipulated surrender of your vocational nurse license was effective January 18th of 2014, is that right?
Correct.
You were issued a license as a pharmacy technician in California on March 25th of 2016, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you disclose the disciplinary action from this board on your pharmacy technician registration application?
Yes.
In your petition, you state that therapy has enabled you to examine areas of improvement in your emotional stability. What about your emotional stability needs improvement?
I feel there are times when I should communicate more when I feel panicked or I feel a situation where there's an emergency, how to behave appropriately and how to express my emotions and how to talk about these things or talk about problems I'm having outside of my professional life confidentially.
And how's that improved?
I feel that I'm more stable and I feel more composed in the workplace when I work in emergency situations or I work with other clients as well.
Can you help the board understand why you did not call 911 after it had been approximately 10 minutes since you had a pulse for the patient, MG?
It had not been 10 minutes. It had been within 5 minutes of answering the door. Jay McCandless was early. She was she was maybe about 7 or 8 minutes early. So it had been 5 minutes since that time, not 10 minutes.
And can you help the board explain why, if it had been 5 minutes, why you did not call 911?
Because I was assessing the patients. It did say I didn't do vital signs. I did do a brachial pulse. There was no blood pressure cuff available. I was checking for the connection of the probe of the pulse ox to see that if it was intact. And I'm trying to think back to that event. Since then, guidelines for CPR changed, and I answered the door prior to my intention to call 911. And since that time, I've taken courses on how to handle situations where if you find a patient down versus, if you're alone doing 5 cycles of CPR. Of course, the standards have changed that time. He was considered a pediatric patient. So when you find client down, there's 5 cycles of CPR that's required, or you can do 5 cycles of CPR. But still, I feel like, I feel that I was in a panic at that moment. I can acknowledge that now, and I feel that I'm quicker to respond and I know what to do in those situations, while emotionally composed as well.
You state that you now know what to do in that type of situation. What would you, or how would you handle the same situation today?
I would have called 911 much sooner, as soon as I saw a problem. As soon as I saw, or if I was having trouble assessing a pulse to begin with, I would call 911. I'd activate the EMS right away, without a shadow of a doubt, instead of second guessing other assessments or what to do, or, waiting for help from the oncoming LVN, excuse me.
You stated that you were in a panic. What plans or what do you have now with you that would allow you to appropriately handle situations where you feel that you are in a panic?
I've had a little bit more practice with the ACLS and PLS courses. Been advised about other resources in the community, or other resources in terms of debriefing and how to discuss emergency situations. During my ACLS course, there's been specific training on every particular role of in healthcare in responding to the EMS, or activating the EMS. And since that time, some of the standards have changed, but I feel that I should not second guess myself, and I've been counseled in how to maintain my composure in the field, and how to communicate with other staff in the field, and to know what to do in the situation without second guessing what to do or how things are supposed to be done.
If the board grants your petition for reinstatement, do you have plans to pay the cost recovery that was ordered?
Yes.
Have you been convicted of any offenses since you submitted your petition for reinstatement?
No.
The questions.
Okay, board members?
Yes, I'm not totally clear on, you state in your petition that you felt your lack of communication skills impacted the case, and you've also mentioned other people's communication. What specifically would have impacted the case in retrospect?
Had I verbalized what I was doing for the client in terms of providing for care with family members, especially, I felt that I was trying to say what to do, but nobody wanted to. Other people couldn't quite understand what I was trying to communicate in terms of calling 911 and then starting CPR and then having to get the client onto the floor to initiate CPR. And with the oncoming nurse, instead of saying, well, we need to call 911, we need to call 911, activate the EMS right away without a shadow of a doubt, without seeing, if there's, assessing and reassessing for, week 30 pulse, just call 911. And then the EMS and then the basic life support training and then ACLS has been modified for that same reason. Instead of just rechecking for a pulse, over and over, and then, following or looking up protocol to see what to do, just go ahead and activate the EMS. Even if it appears like there might be just a slight problem, if you have your reservation that there is a problem that would require higher level care or require an emergency response team, activate the EMS right away.
Thank you.
Morning. I have several questions for you, and some may be a little bit difficult, but it's important that I ask you these questions and that you answer them.
Okay.
I've heard you talk a lot about your own emotions and your feelings of panic during the situation, that you were having problems in your personal life. You say that you believe there were some communication issues between you and the RN. You state that this 13-year-old boy had already exceeded his life expectancy. And I'm sorry that you had to have experienced that emotional response in that situation. But none of these things are appropriate reasons or excuses for you to be negligent in your duty as a nurse. You had a duty, right? You had a duty to provide care to this child. What part of the situation do you take responsibility for?
I'm responsible for not responding in a timely manner, and then I've sorted out the problems with my emotional responses, and I've also taken courses and taken training on how to handle these situations effectively and work in my scope of care.
And I see you provided copies of your CPR cards.
Yes, and my other additional trainings, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But when you were, on this day in June 22nd, 2010, you were CPR certified at that time, correct?
Correct.
And then I hear some things about there was 5 minutes, there was 10 minutes that went by that there was not an adequate pulse. But I'm looking at the actual packet, and you have also a copy of this on pages D11 through D13. And I need to understand from you what actions you think were inappropriate or lack of actions you take responsibility for, and what you would do differently now, because this board has a duty to protect the public, and I need to be assured that you will be a safe practitioner. It says on June 22nd, 2010, the incident actually started at 6 a.m. At 6 a.m., you found this child to be lethargic and different, and his pulse oximeter reading had dropped to 90 or 92. That was at 6 a.m. What did you do at that time when he was lethargic and different and his pulse ox had dropped? What were you doing at that time?
Okay. I did document lethargic, but it was not to mean that he was obtunded or stuporous. He was still responding, but it was 6 a.m. He had been sleeping.
Would you do anything differently now?
I would still notify the doctor. Just stop what I'm doing at that moment and definitely notify the doctor right away if I see a change in condition like that or a change. Yes.
Now at 6:30, he was unresponsive and his pulse was thready. So at 6:30, he didn't have an adequate pulse.
No, it was, they stated 6:30. It was more 6:45. I don't understand why they stated 6:30. 6:30, he was still responsive. He just didn't have he didn't have adequate pulse ox. And then so I was, doing suctioning, doing fluids. I was trying to push.
I'm just
fluids.
reading from the official record.
Yeah,
Which when you stipulated in your settlement to surrender your license, this is what you stipulated to. So this is the official record.
Okay.
At 6:45, the pulse oximeter began alarming, and his heart rate was dropping even more. You disconnected the ventilator, and you gave 2 breaths with the ambu bag. Would you do anything differently now?
I would activate the EMS right away at that point, yes.
At 6:55, the other nurse showed up. At 7 o'clock, she instructed you to call EMS. Then they came, yes? He was transferred to Hogan. By 7:49, he was deceased. So according to the record, he in fact had a inadequate pulse for at least half an hour. At least half an hour. If this situation happened to you today, starting from 6 a.m., you could relive the situation, what actions would you take?
Would notify the doctor. And in that situation, I would still activate the EMS, just to verify that this client would remain stable, and just to see if this client would need a higher level of care at that point, yes.
And
I would notify my RN supervisor at that point as well. And then, if I had to contact a respiratory therapist at the time as well, I would do the same, or I would have done that differently. And have the demeanor I have here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And you've talked about that you had some emotional distress, that you had some panic, and I do see that you included that you've been receiving some psychotherapy. As you know, nursing is a stressful job. And
I understand that, yes.
Nurses are called on routinely to deal with crisis situations. If we were to reinstate your license and you began working again as an LVN, you may have to handle a crisis situation, a code blue situation, a dramatic type situation where a patient's life is on the line. How would you, stop yourself or be able to control your emotions and your panic response? How would you be able to control that today? I
would verbalize more like what we need to do or what should be, done, or ask for help more. And I feel like I'd be more secure in that, at least within my scope of practice. I've taken other, breathing techniques and other stress relief courses as well. So that's kind of helped me in terms of working in the field.
Could you tell me specifically, like maybe one or two specific things that you learned either in the stress reduction classes or in psychotherapy that would help you maintain your composure and your professionalism in a crisis situation?
Just to communicate more with friends and family about how I feel, at least. Working in the field, it can be tough. Yes, it is very stressful. There are events, there are emergencies. I don't like to disclose too much, information on the field as well. But and just kind of our daily routine that we go through as nurses, and the things that we have to respond to right away, and actively treat right away if there's a problem, a code, or there's emergency situations. And support groups have helped as well. Yeah, so I've been advised by my.
Are you still attending support groups?
I still attend support groups occasionally, and then I just have more support from family and friends, mainly.
And then I see you have some other certifications. You put CPHT, I think that's your pharmacy technician license.
Yes, that's the PTCB certification, so it's a little bit more specified.
And what is it? What's the difference between them?
Well, you're nationally certified versus being state certified, and you can do a little bit more in the field of pharmacy technician, but I haven't practiced for a while, but I still work with medications, yeah.
And then you list PTCB. What is that?
That's the pharmacy.
That's also
yeah,
pharmacy.
Yeah, that's also pharmacy, yeah. That's the back of each certification. That's front and back, yeah. The front and back copy, yeah.
You also list that you have CNA training. Are you certified as a CNA currently?
No, I haven't practiced, but I've worked as a DSP worker, where it's a lot of primary care that we do in the field. But as a detox counselor, we do a lot of what a CNA, the role of a CNA, at least, yeah.
And then the one thing that I see listed your current work as a victim advocate.
Oh, that was at the time that I applied for my reinstatement. That was back then. That was the volunteering position I had at the time. Recently, I work as an alcohol drug counselor in a rehabilitation facility in the city of Santa Monica, California.
So this says Angel Step In. Is that?
Correct, yes. I volunteered there, for a short period, for like a good...
So that's not your current place?
No, it's not, yeah. I think my most current letter recommendation has my recent employer, or is from my recent employer.
So your most recent employment is as a chemical dependency counselor?
Alcohol drug counselor, yes.
Alcohol counselor? Yeah. At a detox facility, I think you said? Rehab facility?
It is rehabilitation, and then there's also a detox area in the rehabilitation. Detoxification, excuse me.
And you're practicing there not as a CNA or a pharmacy tech, just...
As a counselor, I do have my bachelor's in psychology, so I was able to work in that scope of practice.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for coming today. I guess my first question is, I'm trying to understand how much experience you had between getting your license and when the event occurred. So you received your license February 2008?
2008, yes.
And on June 22, 2010 is when the incident happened.
Correct.
That's almost 2 years.
Yes.
What, can you talk about your experiences during those 2 years that qualify you to work with this patient on your own that evening?
When I first became licensed, I'd worked in a subacute rehab facility. So I'd worked with comatose and semi-comatose patients on ventilators and trachs actively, and I had done that for about a year. And then I had training with the company in terms of ventilator trach basic care with a client with a ventilator and trach, and I'd worked within the second year with children with trachs and ventilators. I'd had to use with some ventilator and trach care as well at the time.
Was this the first time that you were on your own when such a emergency occurred, such as loss of pulse?
Yes, it was. But I'd seen incidents like this happen when I'd worked in subacute with adult clients, of course, with ventilator and trach, or patients, in ventilator and trach care and facilities, It was of course, it's different, but I had assisted in terms of coding and with CPR.
But that was in a facility with other
staff. Yes, there were
staff
tons of
that
staff
could
that
contribute to mitigating the situation. And it was really hard to hear your response of what will you do different if you had an emergency. That emergency occurred today. What would you do? So this is what I heard. I heard you would contact the doctor. You would contact the RN. The father was sleeping in the room. Would you contact the father?
Yes, and I would verbalize, what I would do more with with the child, or the patient or the client with the family member as well. And but if it was an major situation where I felt like his condition would change rapidly, I would activate the EMS.
Would you contact 911?
Yes, activate the EMS, call 911, yes.
At what point?
That I saw his condition was changing at 6 a.m. Or I would call the doctor, and then if he advised me to call 911, or I would call 911 if I felt that his condition would rapidly change. But it's different because that's like the home care setting, and he was alert at the time. And so his vitals had just change at that point. But if it persisted, or if I saw that right away, if he had changed rapidly after that that time, I would call 911. Yes.
Now, so we tried to understand here if there is if there's been, since the incident to now, if there's been a change in your knowledge, your behavior, your actions. We want to see that that you see that this was a problem first, and second, that you will have a different behavior or different actions to save the patient. Would you say are ready to be in a situation that is stressful, that someone's life could be at stake, and that you have both the steady mindset, you have the knowledge, you have the preparation, and would you say you're ready for that?
Yes. I am.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Lim, you indicated that at the time you were caring for this patient, you had personal problems,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
How did those personal problems lead you to make the decisions that you did make that day?
I didn't feel like it led me to make those decisions directly, but I felt that it affected my performance on the job. My ex, my son's dad, had recently left, and I was a single parent at the time, and I was having trouble at home, and I felt like that affected my performance, or affected how my affect was in the field, and I felt like that might have affected my performance as a nurse at the time, and I didn't really pay attention to it at the time, and I didn't notice it, and I just kept working and working instead of, getting the help and the assistance that I needed at the time.
So these issues affected your performance by affecting your judgment? Is that right?
I felt it did somewhat, yes.
I have nothing else.
Morning, Ms. Lim. Thank you for being here. I have, this is difficult. This is a difficult situation.
Yes.
I know you must have gone over this many times since this incident.
Yes.
Help me understand, what did you think was happening that morning? Why did you disconnect the ventilator? Why did you begin the rescue breathing? What did you think was happening?
It did feel that he was rapidly losing consciousness, and but he still had a weak 30 pulse. So at the time, CPR was different, where you do two fast ventilation, or two ventilations with compressions afterward, and it was changed over. And then now with recent updates in CPR and BLS, there is the 30 compressions at 2 breaths after the compression. So now,
Felt you were beginning CPR? Is that what your thoughts were? That you were initiating CPR?
Yes, and then I had read, the BLS had changed it that one particular month in that one particular year, where if you find the patient down, or if you're alone, in this situation I was alone, you can start 5 cycles of CPR on a pediatric patient, and that's changed as well at the time.
So you recognized the patient was in an emergent situation.
And then I had attempted CPR right away with the protocol that you could do 5 cycles of CPR prior to activating the EMS. But I know that there were things that I shouldn't have done in the field at the time when I was in a panic. And now with training, I feel like I'm more confident in knowing what to do in those situations.
Can you give me an example? You mentioned that in your current work that you have had emergent situations that have had changes in status of patients. Can you describe specifically an incident and how you may have responded since?
Yes, with one client who snuck in, she snuck in large amounts of benzodiazepines and narcotics, Vicodin and Ativan specifically. Her vital signs were changing, so we had taken vitals and noticed right away that there was a change in her breathing patterns and her fluctuations. She was having also withdrawal symptoms were also getting worse as well. So at that point, we transported her to the emergency room. At that point, she had not actively coded, but we knew that she needed a higher level of care at that point.
And did you have any part of initiating the emergency response?
Yes, I mean, I did agree. I mean, of course, there was the on-site nurse, but then there was that agreement, and I had to point out certain vitals and different stats that had changed at that time.
Thank you.
Good morning. Most of my questions have been answered. I just want to touch back on a few things. You said that the people that wrote these letters of support for you know about the reason that your license was revoked, yet none of them mention anything at all that you shared with them. In fact, this one letter from May 16th, 2018, if I'm reading this correctly, you've only known this person for 3 months, yet you shared with her the experiences that happened with you?
Well, I did explain to her that I was attempting to get my nursing license back. This is somebody I've been acquainted with over these 3 months. And I said that I was, I'm also applying for my CADAC license as well to work as a certified alcohol and drug counselor, and I had to explain to her this situation at hand so she's aware, but she still felt that I was still competent enough to work as an alcohol and drug counselor, give me the petition to apply for my CADAC. And there was the application for reinstatement that requested or required that I do work performance evals, and so that's also part of the performance eval. I know it's been only a month or 3 months, but it requested that I had shown work experience and documentation of my work performance, attitude, demeanor, appearance, and so I just wanted the board to see that I've been working in the field of healthcare, and that I've had, appropriate appearances, appropriate behaviors. So I just wanted the board to see the recent letters. Now, there's another letter from 2013 from Laura Reyes, who was an RN that I worked under, who I'm also acquainted with, who had known the situation as well. And then the manager, Marlena Reed, from an adolescent group home, who was the administrator when I was an LVN there, and she was aware of the situation as well. We didn't want to discuss, details about the case or anything because that way. They just gave me a basic letter of recommendation just stating performance and stating, my clinical judgments and my performances or my level of care, scope of care as a nurse at that facility, and then Laura Reyes, that was a psychiatric facility I'd worked in, and then we'd had some emergency situations, and so they were just documenting my performance or petitioning for acknowledging, working with me. I mean, they can't know too much about the case, of course, but they could give me references to say that I was stable and I was an adequate nurse and I was competent when I'd worked with them.
On page A11 in your packet, and on page A10, what I'm looking for is that there's a section in there that talks about what you've done to prevent a reoccurrence. And on there you wrote that you have volunteered at is it Narcanon? And then
Naranon, yes.
And then you did a couple of beach cleanups. Was it just an oversight that is what you listed as what you would be doing to prevent a reoccurrence of the reasoning for your license being taken away? Because I think you've done all these other things.
Well, I mean, the questions were like, what have I done personally, or what have I done to improve my what I've done, in terms of working with the community or working families and children again, and then I felt that's helped with me emotionally.
Okay, so
but it has nothing to do, of course, with being a nurse. But I mean, I felt like it was to help me improve my personal character. Okay, and I felt like it was to help me therapeutically.
So the main one of the main causative factors that you feel, that I've heard that you state, that you feel happened that during that incident was your emotional instability at that time and your lack of communication skills with other people. Is that correct?
Yes, I also feel like there was also a little bit of lack of knowledge to recognize emergency situations, and that's why I've taken other provider courses like ACLS and PLS, or excuse me, PLS, to recognize emergency situations or to acknowledge them a lot sooner and to, handle them and, be able to get the care that these clients need sooner and see these signs, signs of stability on the field, the changes in their condition sooner, and to be able to, care for them a lot sooner and to respond sooner.
So just couple other things. So you had experience with vents and trachs for at least a year and a half prior to finding yourself in this home situation, correct?
Correct.
And you did recognize that the pulse oximetry reading had gone to 90 or 92 early on in this incident.
Yes, but I'd also suctioned and I'd also increased the oxygen for the patient or the client, and it had been going up, and of course it didn't include that in nursing notes. That's why I've been taking documentation courses as well. See that it did go up between 92 and 94 throughout the night, and within that time I was trying to take other measures, and I know I shouldn't have done that. I know I should have gotten help sooner at that time, and called or communicated more with other staff, even if it was 6 a.m.
So you just stated throughout the night. So was it throughout the night, or was it?
No, it was going towards the end of the shift that this occurred, I see that the ACLS requirements changed since that time as well. So I was not sure at the time, but I feel more sure now about what to do in those situations. And I would definitely call for more help, or if I saw like a rapid change, I would definitely activate the EMS.
Okay, thank you.
No, the client was still can I just add, the client was still conscious this whole time, and he was still awake and alert upon arousal.
Thank you.
Board members, are you satisfied with the questions asked?
I have one question. Clearly, you've tried to explain to us what occurred in the sequence of circumstances. This was a duty that was all night, is that correct?
Correct.
Was there anything that was a distraction or that you were involved with, engaged with shortly before this?
No.
So what were you doing at that when you noticed the change?
I was monitoring the client. I think I just done some basic cares, and I think I had repositioned a few times and done some suctioning and a breathing treatment, and just does the basic level of care, monitoring the client closely. But what do you mean by distraction? Like a environment or external, or?
Was there anything that distracted you? Were you in another room, another part of the house? Did you fall asleep?
No, I did not fall asleep. No, I did not fall asleep. No.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, do you wish to make any statement in closing? Asking both of you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go off the record. This time we're going to take a short recess. We have a lot of hearings still. I'm going to suggest that we reconvene in 10 minutes. Members that are observing, I'm going to ask you, please, if you would allow board members to use the facilities first if they have need, and I invite you to do so, obviously, after that or during the hearing. I just would facilitate our being able to move quickly. Thank you. Board members, Mr. Navarro has provided us additional copies. You'll find it hopefully right in front of you. Yeah.
Your Honor.
Reporter, we're going to do it on the record. Reporter, you ready? Okay, just a second, please. I'd like to open the record at this time in the matter of a petition for reinstatement. The petitioner is Mr. Mark Pierre Navarro. It has OAH case number 2018-050112. Mr. Pierre is a psychiatric technician with license number PT30558. He is present and will be appearing on his own behalf. Appearing on behalf of the Department of Justice is Cna Training. Prior to going on the record, I was advised that one of our board members is to make a statement on the record prior to recusing herself. And, Ms. James Perez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I will be recusing myself in this case.
And let me indicate that she will also not be participating in the closed session discussions involving this matter because of her prior involvement in this case. All right. As before, I invite our Deputy AG to provide board members with a summary and history of this case.
Thank you. My name is Melissa Seamantle, Deputy Attorney General. I am appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I am here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I am here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. In the packet that has been provided, that I believe has been marked as Exhibit 1, is the petition for reinstatement dated September 22nd, 2017, with a copy of the stipulated surrender of license and order in board case number PT-2009-4828, a RELIAS, R-E-L-I-A-S, learning transcript for the petitioner, 4 articles, work performance evaluations, and 4 letters of support. It also contains license certification for petitioner, notice of hearing and related correspondence, and the stipulated surrender of license and order in board case number PT-2009-4828. As a brief background, the board issued petitioner psychiatric technician license number PT30558 on March 7th, 2000. On November 15th of 2011, an accusation was filed by the board in case number PT-2009-4828. On January 17th, 2013, an amended accusation was filed by the board for incompetence, gross negligence, and acts involving dishonesty. On February 22nd of 2009, petitioner allowed all of his staff members to leave their shifts at least 15 minutes early. Petitioner also failed to complete his relief with the NOC shift lead and left without knowing who his relief was. Petitioner did not complete an inspection of the clients in their physical environment prior to departing his shift. He failed to supervise his staff and allowed a PT to close the door to the female's hallway at the facility where he worked, and allowed the PT to sit outside the door knitting while another client assaulted a victim client. The victim client was found by the oncoming NOC shift lead to have a lotion-type substance in her eyes, foreign objects in her mouth and nostrils, 2 missing teeth and blood coming from her mouth, scratches on her chest, and a cord lying across her neck. Petitioner and his staff had already left their shift, even though their shift had not yet ended. The victim client sustained brain damage due to lack of oxygen, and it was later revealed that she was brain dead. As a disciplinary consideration, in 2004, petitioner received an official reprimand for incompetency and inexcusable neglect of duty for failing to properly supervise and assess a client who had been vomiting and failed to notify and/or make proper notification to the nurse on duty. On April 30th of 2014, petitioner's license was ordered surrendered by a stipulation. The decision became effective on May 30th, 2014. The stipulated surrender of license and order included cost recovery in the amount of $5,000. Because the burden is on petitioner, I have no further statements but would reserve the right to question petitioner.
Thank you very much. I've marked the petition packet as Exhibit 1, and I've marked the supplemental documents provided today as Exhibit 2. Any objection?
No.
1 and 2 are in evidence. Mr. Navarro, I'd like to administer an oath to you. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, I'd like you to take your liberties, please, in commenting on the underlying events leading to discipline as well evidence of rehabilitation. I remind you again that the board is familiar with what you've submitted, and it's perhaps enough that you update the board and highlight those other matters that you wish them to consider. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, everyone. I am currently employed by Telecare's Treehouse program. It's a crisis residential program, which is a short-term crisis residential program. I have been employed with them even prior to the surrender of my license. During my employment with Telecare, they offer continuing education courses through Relias, and I have submitted a transcript of those. Though not all of them are certified by the board, some of them are. Also, in addition to that, I have submitted an additional transcript of more continuing education units. I've also been certified as a 5150 certified person in the County of Orange in Southern California. And I am also certified as I also acquired a BLS certification from American Heart Association. I started off at my current employer as an on-call employee and worked my way up to a full-time employee. During my tenure, my role has expanded from doing floor duties such as preparing meals, making beds, doing laundry and such, to reviewing referrals and doing admissions. Also, I've been a part of focus groups, and I have suggested and revised some of our policy and procedures, focusing on the safety and supervision of the clients. I'm glad to say that I have no former complaints against me, and I have the support of my program administrator. Also been transparent with the program, with all of what's happening with my professional license. They have been very understanding of it. That's all.
Ms. Samantha will have questions at this time.
You included work evaluations in your packet. Your evaluation from Telecare Corporation for July 2016 through July 2017, which is specifically looking at page A103, states that you have been observed by, give you a moment, let me know when you're at the page. Page A103 states that you have been observed by coworkers and clients reading a book on duty. Is it correct that it is not part of your job duties to be reading a book or books while on duty?
That is correct. We are allowed a couple of 15-minute breaks that we need to take on the property. We're not allowed to leave the campus or anything as such. And so during my break, I like spending my free time reading, and sometimes I do smoke. And it's in an area where I can be seen. But in hindsight, I should have went off somewhere where I would not be seen, and reading the book is misconstrued as being not doing anything or being negligent.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. So it's my understanding that even though this was included in your work evaluation, the work evaluation was describing conduct that you were doing during a break?
It may or may not have been. I don't really know what they have seen, but it could have been while I was on duty as well. My supervisor has brought this to my attention, and I have rectified it. I have never been reprimanded again for reading while I was on duty.
So you say you were reprimanded for reading while on duty, is that correct?
Yes, that's what it says on the evaluation.
Your work evaluation from July 2014 through July 2015, specifically looking at page A126. States that your smoke breaks interfered with your coworker relationships in an area of shared responsibility. Please explain the issue with your smoke breaks and your work.
I believe this issue was more of a personal issue with my coworker. I've taken my breaks. I'm very conscientious about following the time constraints of the break. I have been having professional issues with this coworker. I have no idea what she said to my administrator, but we have worked it out, and I continue to work with this said person. And again, I have talked to my supervisor and told him that, I will rectify the situation and be more mindful of communicating and telling my coworker when I will be taking my break and where I will be going.
So that was the issue, that it was when your break would be taken and where you'd be going?
Yes. The issue was that she was saying that she was unaware of the time that I'm taking my breaks and where I was going, pretty much.
In light of the facts underlying the accusation for your failure to perform your job duties where a patient was harmed and later died from the injuries, how can you assure the board that you will not neglect your duties as a psychiatric technician again when you recently have been reprimanded for reading on the job?
I do recognize my shortcomings as a person and my complacency at the job, and self-evaluation and also evaluations from my employees are very helpful for me. Since then, I have tried my best to be very professional, and I've tried to conduct myself in such a way that I become an example and a role model for other employees that are coming into the program. I want to assure the board that I take my job seriously. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And I take every step to ensure the safety and supervision of our clients. Repeat the question, please. I feel like I have more to say.
In light of the facts underlying the accusation for your failure to perform your job duties where a patient was harmed and later died from the injuries, how can you assure the board that you will not neglect your duties as a psychiatric technician again when you have recently been reprimanded for reading on the job?
Thank you. I've also been working on my communication skills with my coworker. I've been more open. I've been more open to criticisms instead of taking them as a negative, taking them as an opportunity to learn and grow. Also, like I said, communications with my coworkers and just interprofessional relationships that can be cultivated and kind of grow into mutual respect.
You stated that you recognize your complacency on the job. What has caused you to become complacent either in the previous job that you had at the time of this incident and or in your current job?
I think the first reason or first reason for being complacent is that nothing goes wrong for such a long time that we go into this routine and it's not broken, and it goes on every day, and it goes on, and nothing is being said, and the routine is not being broken. I think that's where the complacency kind of goes in. As a person, I try to break that cycle and not be in complacency. It's kind of a rut. And complacency gives a false sense of security that nothing will go wrong because we're complacent and we're comfortable in it. And yeah, I said I think that's all I have to say.
What steps have you taken or do you take to handle or prevent being complacent?
Like I said before, I do self-evaluations, and I do approach my program administrator and kind of do a little self-evaluation and try to get feedback from my current administrator, and not only my current administrator, but also my coworkers as well.
How often do you do that?
The annual is, the official is annual once a year, and I do self-evaluation with my administrator in between maybe once or twice. There's no official time frame that we have to adhere to. I just come up to my administrator and ask if he could meet or if he could talk.
You do that once or twice a year?
Yes.
Looking at the incident described in the accusation, why did you leave and allow your staff to leave early in the night in question or described?
It was common practice to have staff leave when the knock shift is oncoming. It's what's been happening since I've started working at that facility. It's something that should not be happening, but it's kind of a common practice that if there's already a replacement, then off-going staff can go. The reason I left is I was newly married at that time, and I just wanted to go home to my wife. I just wanted to spend that much more time with her. I just wanted to be with her. It's, the truth.
Again, looking at the incident described in the accusation, what were you doing where a staff member in charge with monitoring the hallway had the ability to be knitting?
I cannot specifically recall what I was doing. As a charge nurse, I have various duties. Also, I do cover the staff when they go on break. Sometimes the staff don't take breaks until late in the evening, and there's also paperwork in the office. There's also phone calls. I cannot recall specifically what I was doing during that time.
Can you please explain to the board what you would have done differently in regards to the facts underlying the accusation?
I would not have left early. I would have stayed there until the end of my shift. I would have held my staff till the end of their shift. I would have supervised more. I should have looked at I would have looked at the forms that should have been completed, that the 15-minute checks were done. I would make sure that the doors are open, and supervision is paramount to the safety of the client. Go ahead.
Are you finished? I don't want to interrupt
Yes.
you. If your license is reinstated, how can you ensure the board that a situation such as this would not happen again?
I have never been more vigilant in my professional career. I am punctual. I come to work and I leave work at the time that I'm supposed to leave. I make sure that my documentation is on point. Nothing is missing. Everything is signed correctly, and everything is communicated and passed on to the oncoming shift. I keep myself updated with policies and procedures with the companies. I do ask my administrator if there are any changes, and communicate with my fellow staff members if they are aware of any changes that are happening with the company. Also, I participate in focus groups. I attend staff meetings and attend in-services. Actually, I have been recently conducting in-services for the proper documentation of admission paperwork in my current employment. I would have been more vigilant and made sure that everybody was safe. And yes, that's all I have to say.
You provided support letters from individuals that work for your current employer. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Are these individuals aware of the basis for the disciplinary action that resulted in the surrender of your license?
Yes, I was very transparent with them.
If the board grants your petition for reinstatement, do you have plans to pay the cost recovery that was ordered?
Yes.
Have you been convicted of any offenses since you submitted your petition for reinstatement?
No, I have not.
I have no further questions.
Carpenter, did you have questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Navarro. You've already answered one of my questions insofar as what you would have done differently that night. You commented that it was common practice
Yes.
for people to leave early if the replacements were already there.
Yes.
I don't recall that being stated in your petition, that the replacements had already arrived when the others left, when your crew left.
Yes, the
Was the
replacements
case?
have already arrived, but a physical inspection of the unit has not been done.
You also stated that you had requested a voluntary demotion in 2006. Can you explain the circumstances surrounding that?
Yes, I was promoted as a senior psych tech, and they were doing a reshuffle, I guess you can call it, at the facility I was working at, and they had determined that the shift would be redistributed by seniority. And since I was new, I would be delegated to the knock shift. And I couldn't afford to be on the knock shift at that time. So I selected a demotion instead of taking the knock shift.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning, ma'am.
Just a couple of things. You've told the scenario surrounding this incident, and you've done well in completing your work in terms of the studies you took before licensure. The studies included ethics. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And when we think of ethics, can you tell us what that means in terms of the practice and why I might be concerned about your ethical outlook in this case?
Well, when I hear ethics, I think about what we're supposed to do when we're at work. This is what we're supposed to be doing, what the correct way of following policy and procedure. That is what comes to mind when I hear of ethics. And could you repeat the second part of your question, please?
Absolutely. And why would I be concerned about your incorporation of ethics in the work you do, particularly around this incident? Why would that be important?
Well, I think in this incident there are a lot of things that I admittedly did incorrectly. But ever since then, I have been trying to conduct myself as the consummate professional, and I've been trying to follow policy and procedure, and I have been trying very hard, and I feel like I have succeeded into improving my work ethic. And regarding this incident, I was reckless and foolish, and I was young, and there's lapses in judgment that should have not had happened, and I can assure you, ma'am, that those lapses in judgment would never happen again.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, if it's ethically right versus ethically wrong, just because everyone else might be doing something ethically wrong, that doesn't mean you follow them? Is that what you're saying?
No, ma'am, that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I had a lapse in judgment and I shouldn't have followed what everyone was doing, especially if it's not following policy and procedure. Like I said, I was young and reckless and had a lapse in judgment. That is something that I have never done again ever since this incident.
And also, you were in a somewhat supervisory role at that time,
That is correct.
meaning you were the role model, having allowed others to take advantage or not follow the rule.
Yes, ma'am.
In the future, because you've mentioned you are now the role model and you've made a difference for some of the individuals in your more recent work, how have you helped them in terms of making appropriate decisions even when they see someone else, same role, not follow the rule or the policy?
Well, I make sure that I do explain the proper policies and procedure, and I do tell them that it is expected for them to follow the policies and procedures in place. And that's what I've been doing. I have been following all of the company's policies and procedure and make sure that I pass that along. That I make sure that I show them and I show them firsthand, them meaning new hires and new staff, by witnessing what I do and modeling to them that this is the correct way to do it.
Thank you.
Hi, with regards to the books and the evaluation, did this happen before the incident? I was trying to find the date, but I couldn't. Or after the incident in your current employer?
It was after the incident is dated February 22nd of 2009, I believe. That evaluation was in July 2014? 15?
As a board member, our responsibility to ensure that if we're going to reinstate license, that we take into account the safety of the patients you will be seeing. And do you see how both reading the book and taking, and another statement you made that's concerning to me was that your supervisor did not know when you were leaving on a smoke break. See how it's concerning as a board member that during these lapses post the event,
Yes, ma'am.
that you may be again putting patients at risk?
Like I said before, a sense of complacency has kind of clouded my judgment at that time. Also, my direct supervisor is not always available on the floor, so I guess it's kind of a self-reporting kind of thing if you're going on a quick smoke break to notify your coworker about that. And then during those smoke breaks, those 15 minutes, we're not allowed. Like I said, we're not allowed to leave the facility, and we're visible at all times.
really hard for me to like understand if you're taking a smoke break, which means you cannot smoke in the facility. So you have to go outside the facility to smoke.
Yes, we have a smoking patio.
That the only person that you can, are you saying that the only person you can communicate that you're leaving the facility is your manager?
No. I do work with a number of individuals, and I do make it a point to tell my coworkers where I am going. But like I said previously, that I've been having interprofessional hardship with this other employee, and we've since worked it out. We've had a better professional relationship since. That I don't know her mindset. I don't know what she was, thinking, where she was going with that. But that's kind of where that came from. But I do make it a point to let somebody know if I am leaving the floor.
If complacency seems to be a word that you continue to go to, and when you are dealing with a person's life, that is not the word that I would like to hear someone describing himself or his past experiences, and even, post this event.
Mm-hmm.
You still talk about complacency. It seems to me like that is a big obstacle, a big barrier that was occurring at the time
Mm-hmm.
this event occurred, continues at your evaluation of 2014, and 4 years later, it's still a word that you continue to use to describe yourself and your work environment. Am I hearing that correctly?
No, I'm not using complacency as a word to describe myself. I'm using it as a word. Like you said, it's a hurdle that I need to overcome. Kind of like an area of improvement, and I have improved since. And my supervisor can testify to it that I have rectified all the situations and all the shortcomings I've had in his evaluations, and it's never mentioned again in any other evaluation.
I'm very concerned about the lack of communication between you, co-workers, and supervisors when you take your breaks and you leave the facility. So I just wanted to let you know that this is I'm very concerned about that.
I just would like to let you know, ma'am, that during these smoke breaks that do not leave the facility. We do have a smoking patio that is provided for the clients and for the staff, and it is on the property. I'm not leaving the property. I'm still within the vicinity. Actually, the smoking patio is attached to the building. And the communication, it's something that I make sure that I communicate to my team. And it's just, like I said, one person. And as I mentioned earlier also, that I have rebuilt my relationship with this coworker.
I know that there's a lot of paperwork that already happens in medical facilities, and I'm curious if there should be a break spreadsheet where you document someone's on break, and that this spreadsheet is visible, whoever is taking over your responsibility during those 10-15 minute breaks that you take, so that this doesn't continue to come about I mean, you basically have two things on record right now post this event, that you are reading books while on your shift, and that takes me back to the record that the person that was doing the hall duty was knitting. So I see no difference between these two. That you're distracted from doing your duties. Second, even when you depart the patio area where you're gonna leave, even if it's attached, if there is something happening in a patient's bedroom, and someone, your colleague, your manager does not know you're out in the patio, something can happen in that patient's room. So I just wanted to close this topic because I do have one last question. And the last question that I have is that you mentioned that it was common practice at the previous facility with this event occurred for people to leave early. Was it also common practice for the supervisor not to conduct a facility check?
I would like to make one last comment from the previous subject. The company has placed procedure in preventing any other lapse in communications, and they have implemented a staggered break procedure, so the clients are supervised all the time. Going back to your last question, no, ma'am, it is not common practice for supervisors to let their staff leave without physical inspection of the unit. And that, again, is admittedly a lapse in judgment. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Navarro. In your petition, at page A5, there's a section, question 11, have you read any books or articles pertaining to your area of professional practice? And rather than listing the name of the book or periodical, identifying the author and title of our article,
Yes.
you said please see attached, and I would think you're certainly free to do that. In the narrative piece, you summarize the articles of a general nature without identifying them specifically, but then you attach copies of the articles.
Yes, sir.
My concern is, did you understand that question?
You're asking me why I did not enumerate the names and the titles of the articles?
Yeah, it might seem minor, but I consider that an oversight.
I agree, sir. It is an oversight, and I thought it was sufficient to put it into a narrative and attached some articles that I have read on the internet. And like I said, on the narrative, I was unaware that they would be required, so I didn't take note of the articles.
Just to summarize for my own information, you indicated relating to the date in question regarding the incident that there was a lapse in judgment.
Yes, sir.
What time do you think the lapse began on that night?
As soon as the chain of events start unfolding, I can't really give you a specific time, sir, but it was towards the end of the shift that had happened.
Okay. And then when do you think the lapse concluded that particular night, if it did conclude?
Can you clarify your question, please?
Yeah, you indicated that there was a beginning to the lapse in judgment. When did the lapse conclude? When did it finish? When was the lapse over? In other words, when did you regain a sound judgment, if at all, that particular night?
It was.
When did you realize, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, please.
when did you realize that there was indeed a lapse of judgment?
Well, when I received the phone call from the knock shift, one of my coworkers that were oncoming, and they asked me to return. And when I returned, and I have kind of witnessed the scenario, and it's kind of that's when I recognize that there has been lapses in my judgment.
Okay, so absent the phone call and the notification regarding discipline, you would not have acknowledged there was a lapse in discipline, a lapse in judgment?
Yes, I do recognize the lapse in judgment and discipline in my evaluations after the incident.
Okay, thank you.
Morning, Mr. Navarro.
Morning, sir.
I echo Board Member Amazola de Hera and concern about your characterizing incident as reckless and
Yes, sir.
judgment. You understand that a woman died as a result of your actions.
Yes, sir. And that's something I think of every day, and something that I have to carry for the rest of my life.
I need to see rehabilitation, some significant change in the way you are going to conduct yourself. That evening, you've talked about policy being commonly disregarded at the facility, perhaps, that it was common to send people home early. Was it common not to conduct the Q15s at this facility?
No, sir. The Q15s were assigned to the staff supervising the female clients.
Who assigned them?
Do you mean the Q15s or the staff member?
Who assigned the staff member?
I assigned the staff
Who
member.
assigned the staff member? So between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock or 10:45 when you went home, did you ever go to that hallway to see if the staff member was performing their duties?
No, sir. I guess I put too much trust into my staff doing the 15-minute checks.
Is that the complacency that you were talking about?
It could be, yes.
I'm very concerned because as the supervisor at the time, you were responsible for the policy being followed, being administered. Not sure I'm hearing that perhaps that you understand the gravity of what happened, but I'm still not sure I'm hearing what's changed. Can you enlighten me a little bit as to how now you approach your job substantially differently than you did?
Yes, I do understand the gravity of the situation. Life was lost, and I'm supervisor when that happened. So, during my employment now, I make sure that the clients are supervised. We do hourly rounds, and I do make sure that I do the rounds when it's my turn to do the rounds. We do have clients on increased supervision, sort of a suicide watch. And I do take this very seriously, and I do make the rounds myself when I am assigned to them. And if any of my coworkers are too busy to do it, then I will step up and do it. I make sure I communicate with my team. I make sure that my supervisors, my administrators, my coworkers are aware of where I am at all times. I made sure that my documentations are filled out properly, and I make sure that I follow everything as per policy and procedure of the company, and I make sure that everything is filled out as it's supposed to be. I come to work when I'm supposed to come to work, and I leave when I'm supposed to leave at work. I leave no stones unturned, and like I said, communicate everything, especially things regarding the clients, because client safety is paramount.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Just to further this line of questioning that we're going down, I'm also concerned about the complacency. Explain why your latest job evaluation, which would be 2016, 2017, your employer puts in the evaluation that you appear complacent. What was happening in your current work environment that speaks to complacency?
Direct me to that page, ma'am. I'm sorry.
It would be A103.
A103?
A103, I believe.
Ma'am, can you repeat your question, please? Why, in my recent evaluation?
So that's your last evaluation, because you would be getting the 2017, 2018 evaluation, I imagine, coming up.
Correct. Yeah.
So the most current evaluation we have of your current work ethic says by your employer that Mark has been complacent at times, has been observed by coworkers. It's the same sentence where you're observed reading books while you're on duty. I'm not concerned with your reading books while on duty part. I'm more concerned that your employer still describes you as being your current employer describes you as being complacent.
Okay.
And I haven't heard anything that would lead me to believe that you fully understand that it was your job as supervisor
Yes.
to make sure that your workers weren't complacent. It was your job to make sure that the workers were doing these checks that you assigned them to do.
Yes.
It was your job to do physical rounding with the oncoming, because you were trained in that, 2 years prior to this incident, you were trained in a handoff procedure and that you could not leave until you had physically rounded on the patients with the oncoming nurse. And by your own admission, you said that you were complacent at that time.
Yes.
You used the word complacent. You brought it up. We didn't bring it up.
Yes.
And now your current employer also describes you as complacent. So that's a real concern, because while you can be a stellar employee and go to work on time and do documentation and take your breaks on time, what remains a moral and ethical thing that you do as a person is not become complacent in the job that you do.
Yes. I do realize now that I use the word complacent and complacency a lot, and during my evaluation, I do talk about it with my supervisor in an ongoing kind of
But why did your
annual evaluations. I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
What actions were you doing that made your supervisor write that you were complacent?
I really don't know his mindset in thinking, but like I said, when we're doing the evaluation and we have conversation, and I do throw the word complacent and complacency a lot. Maybe he put it there. I really don't have an answer to that, ma'am. I just.
Can you give me your definition of the word complacency? When you throw it out and when you use it, what are you talking about?
Being comfortable. Being in a routine. Kind of my understanding of the word complacency.
Okay. Prior to the night that this happened, how many times had you left work without doing physical rounds on your patients?
I don't think I can put a numerical value on that, ma'am.
More than one?
I do when I am assigned. I do make sure that I do them. I'm not supervisor all the time. During that night I was relieved supervisor. But when I am assigned to do those tasks, I make sure I do them properly and correctly.
How many times prior to this incident had you left work early?
I cannot, again, put a numerical number on it, a
one?
numerical value, but it's been some.
A dozen? 5?
More than 5.
More than 5.
More than 5. Like I described it as common practice previously. So I have participated in that. Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe the board's concluded with its questionings. I'd like to make a closing statement at this time.
First of all, I would like to thank you, Your Honor, and the board for this opportunity, giving me a chance to petition to reinstate my license. I do understand your concerns, and as an individual and as a professional, I work on ways to improve myself, and I value the work that I do. I like working with this population. I like it's very rewarding for me. I like helping out people with mental illnesses and sometimes co-occurring disorders. It's been a very large part of my life. I've been working in this field for about 20 years or so, and it's something that I want to continue doing. And I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen of the board, that this incident is not ever going to happen again. And I can assure you that I will do the best of my abilities to prevent this incident from happening again. I will not allow it. I refuse to allow it. Sorry, excuse me. I think that's the end of my statement. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I assume you had no other comments.
No, thank you.
Right. Matter is submitted. Decision will issue within 30 days. Off the record. Board members' question. We passed the due hour. We do have a relatively short, if the thickness is any indication. Willing to push forward, we could hear one more. Importantly, it would allow our Deputy AG to finish her 4 cases. Have a problem with one more before you take a lunch break? We'll do so, and if you need a short break now, take it. But Mr. Darrell, would you come forward, please? Morning. Mr. Otero, are there any additional documents that you wish the board to have?
Yes, there is.
Mr. Otero, on this second document, there are no patient names or private information that needs to be redacted, is that correct?
No, sir.
Okay. Provided a copy of that also to Ms. Simantel? Okay. Reporter, I should have asked you, you're okay with going forward with one more, yes? You're okay? Okay. Hey, board members, I know you have things in front of you to read. I'll go forward. Okay, let's go on the record, please. We are now hearing the matter of a petition for reinstatement. The petitioner is Mr. Carlos Javier Otero. Mr. Otero is a vocational nurse with license number 235291. This matter has been assigned Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2018-050111. A quorum of the board is present. Note that returning to the panel is Ms. Samantha James Perez. Representing the Office of the Attorney General is Ms. Melissa N. Simantel. Prior to going on the record, additional documents were received and marked as Exhibit 2. I had marked the original petition packet as Exhibit 1. Objection to 1 and 2 being considered?
No.
1 and 2 are both in. And if you would please, Ms. Simantel, could you provide us a brief summary and overview of this case?
My name is Melissa C. Mantle, Deputy Attorney General. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I am here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. Included in Exhibit 1 is the petition for reinstatement dated December 20th, 2017, petitioner's license certification, notice of hearing and related correspondence, and the default decision and order in board case number VN-2011-4455. As brief background, the board issued petitioner vocational nurse license number VN-235291 on June 23, 2008. On June 11, 2013, an accusation was filed by the board in board case number VN-2011-4455 for use of alcohol to an extent or in a manner dangerous to himself or the public, and for failure to respond to the board's inquiry. On April 24th of 2012, petitioner was pulled over for driving at a high rate of speed. Officers smelled the odor of alcohol, and petitioner admitted he had been drinking. Petitioner failed field sobriety tests and had a blood alcohol content of 0.10% by breath. Petitioner was arrested for driving under the influence. A criminal case was filed by the district attorney's office, and petitioner failed to appear for court on 2 court dates. On May 11th, 2012, June 14th of 2012, and October 30th of 2012, the board mailed petitioner letters to his address of record requesting that he submit within 30 days a written description of the violations that led to his arrest on April 23rd of 2012. And the October letter also asked for information regarding petitioner's failure to appear for his court date. Petitioner failed to respond to the board's inquiries. On April 29th of 2014, a default decision was adopted by the board after petitioner failed to submit a notice of defense. On May 21st of 2014, a petition for reconsideration was received by the board. On June 6th, 2014, the petition for reconsideration was denied by the board. The decision became effective on June 8th, 2014, and petitioner's license was revoked. No costs were ordered in the default decision. As the burden is on petitioner, I have no further statements, but would request the right to question petitioner.
Thank you. Mr. Otero, I'd like to begin by administering an oath. And do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Otero, in cases like yours, the board is very interested in hearing about your thoughts on the degree to which you are rehabilitated, what you've done over the last 4 years, and any circumstances underlying the conviction that you think are relevant for their consideration. And finally, I remind you, as you could tell, this board is works hard, and they've reviewed the petitions before them, and they're well informed. So don't feel like you have to go into great detail, but do highlight the matters that you think are important.
No problem. I do take fault for the alcohol. I did drink. I was pulled over. It was actually a 0.7. The first officer was going to let me go. A second officer came. He provided me with another breathalyzer. That one was a little bit higher, actually at a 0.8. The third one was the one that was at 10, I believe. That's when I got to, when I was arrested. The reason my whole thing was I was trying to fight it because it was actually under the alcohol limit. I did admit to having a few drinks because it was only 2 drinks. They actually, in September of 2013, they actually dismissed it to just a reckless driving.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before I invite questioning?
No.
Thank you. When you say that that you were under the alcohol limit, are you referring to the Vehicle Code Section 23-152 Subdivision B that states that states a 0.08% blood alcohol level? Are you also aware that there is Vehicle Code Section 23-152 Subdivision A that makes it illegal to drive under the influence of alcohol regardless of the blood alcohol limit?
Yes.
Could you tell the board whether or not you feel that you were driving under the influence of alcohol on the night that is alleged in the accusation?
I didn't feel like I was. I mean, I had 2 drinks, like I said. I was driving. I got put up for speeding, not swerving. Was it my fault? I put myself in a situation like that? Yes, it is my fault for that. And I do take blame for that part.
Do you feel that, I'm sorry,
I haven't gotten in any other trouble. That was my first incident ever. I've always obeyed the law. It's a situation I put myself in. Do I regret it? Yeah, I do.
do you feel that it was okay that you drove after having 2 drinks?
At the time, I probably did. Now, thinking back, no, I shouldn't have.
Why do you feel that you should not have driven with 2 drinks after having 2 alcoholic drinks?
Well, not knowing how much the alcohol affects you in the body, how much it raises it. Everybody's tolerance is different.
Looking at the petition for reinstatement that you submitted to the board, looking at the employment section, the last employment that you listed was from 2013. Have you been employed since June of 2013?
No, I didn't. I became a stay-home dad while my wife worked and pretty much took care of all the household stuff.
Have you taken any continuing education courses related to nursing or other healthcare issues?
No, I do take care of my grandma as far as driving her around. She has, what is it called, IHCC, which I kind of help her out with.
So you have not taken any continuing education courses, is that correct?
No, I haven't.
You crossed out an answer to question number 13 in your petition in relation to an alcohol or drug rehabilitation program. Are you currently or have you in the past attended an alcohol or drug rehabilitation program?
No, I crossed it out because I misread the question. No, I have not attended one, nor will I ever one. It was just a one incident thing.
Do you think that an alcohol or drug rehabilitation program is not applicable where you were arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol?
No, it was a mistake I made. Have I done anything wrong ever since then? No, I learned from that mistake. I wouldn't put myself in a situation like that again.
Looking at question number 14 in regards to an alcohol or drug support group, you did not answer that question. Could you please tell the board why you did not answer that question?
Because I don't think it relates to my issue.
You said that it does not relate to your issue?
It does not relate.
Why do you feel that an alcohol support group does not relate to your issue?
Because it was a once isolated incident. I made a bad judgment. I'm not a drinker. I'm not an alcoholic. It was a bad decision I just made.
Have you or are you currently attending any AA or NA meetings?
No.
When you say that you're not a drinker, what do you mean by that?
I was going through issues with PTSD at the time from prior military history. That caused me, I went out that night with a friend, we had a drink, and that was the outcome. It was early 11:30 when I got pulled over. It wasn't like I was been drinking all night. It was, I had a drink at 8:39, 10:30 at the latest. I left at 11 going home, and I got pulled over.
When was the date that you last consumed any alcoholic beverage?
Probably that last day right there.
When you say probably, what do you mean?
I can't recall. I'm not a drinker. I've never been a drinker. I was a socialized drinker in the past, but ever since that incident, I wouldn't even put myself in a situation like that.
In your letter requesting reinstatement, you say that your license was revoked due to not contacting the board upon receiving a vehicle infraction. Why did you call your driving under the influence arrest an infraction?
Well, it was actually dropped because it wasn't. It became just a driving reckless, basically me speeding. So the alcohol was taken out of content, basically.
Isn't it true that you were convicted of a misdemeanor offense?
A misdemeanor? I'm not 100% sure on that. All I got was a probation for 3 years and to pay the restitution.
And so being placed on probation, that was due to you being convicted of a misdemeanor, is that right?
It could be.
You failed to appear for a court date and a bench warrant was issued for your arrest on July 26th of 2012, is that correct?
Correct. Due to work. I was working nights from 7 to 7, and I wasn't able to get out there and get there on time.
Sorry, go ahead and slow down a little bit. I don't know if the court.
I was working at the time. I worked from 7 to 7. By the time I got to the court, it was already kind of too late, so I was supposed to, I guess, change the dates. I wasn't able to get off for both times. That's why I wasn't able to show up.
You failed to appear for court again on March 1st of 2013, is that correct?
Correct.
I'm sorry, you appeared for court on March 1st of 2013, is that correct?
Yes.
And you failed to appear again on March 21st of 2013, is that correct?
No, they actually changed my court date on that one and gave me 9/11.
And so you appeared for court on March 21st?
Yes, I actually was there. They changed the dates on me.
You stated that you last worked for Loma Linda VA in June of 2013, is that right?
Correct. I left work just because with the whole issue with my license being suspended, I just wanted to quit. So when I was able to get my license back, I would go back.
And you're referencing your license being suspended. When was your license suspended? Are you referring to your license being revoked?
Yes, from what I have gathering from information, it looked like I was going to get pretty much suspended. So I kind of just quit ahead of time. And I was just dealing with, like I said, other PTSD issues at the time.
Isn't it true that your license was not revoked until June 8th of 2014, which was a year after you stopped working at Loma Linda VA?
Correct. Like I said, I was having issues with PTSD, so I stopped working.
Stated in your petition that you should have your license reinstated because you learned to, quote, contact the board for any infraction in a timely manner. Did you learn anything else?
Yes, not to put my... Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Did you learn anything else from the conduct that is stated in the accusation?
Yeah, I put myself in a bad situation. Luckily, nobody was hurt. Luckily, I wasn't hurt. And something like I learned from. That's pretty much it.
Please tell the board why the board should grant your petition for reinstatement in light of your use of alcohol to an extent or in a manner dangerous to yourself and or the public by driving a vehicle with a blood alcohol content of 0.10%.
Like I said, I put myself in a situation where I shouldn't have been. Looking back, would I do it again? No, I would never do it again. I haven't done anything as far as got in trouble with the law. I've been pretty much adamant as far as, keeping up with myself as a person. Never had an issue as a nurse with my license and anything. I just put myself in a predicament I shouldn't have.
Have you been convicted of any offenses since you submitted your petition for reinstatement?
No, I haven't.
Questions?
We'll begin now with questioning by board members.
Yes, you state that that you did not inform the board of this charge, because you were fighting it, did you believe that if you were successful in fighting this, then there was no need to inform the board ever of it?
No, I knew I was going to inform the board, but I was more thinking along the lines of, okay, if the DUI got dropped, basically it wouldn't look as bad. It was, I think, what I was thinking of. So I was trying to go through it and making sure it was dropped, because my actually blood alcohol level was at 0.7, which is why it ended up getting dropped.
What is your understanding now as far as board requirements for reporting?
Pretty much anytime the board tells you to notify them whether you're right or wrong, you contact them, let them know what's going on.
Thank you.
Morning. The board tried to contact you several times, 3 times in 2012, and then in June 2013, you also signed the receipt of the accusation, so you did receive it.
No, okay. No. I did receive it. I was just more of the impression, okay, I'm trying to fight this through court first and then let the board know, not knowing that I should have let the board know what was going on ahead of time. I was just trying to kind of, I guess, bypass the whole issue until it got dropped and then present them with that.
Did you think by not responding it would go away somehow?
No, it wasn't that I didn't want to respond. It was the way I was taking it is more, okay, I'm going through this court thing. I know it's going to get dropped from what I was talking to the defense attorney. And so more and more I was waiting for the outcome before I contacted the board.
Because you could have contacted the board and said, I'm fighting it.
Oh, I know that now. Trust me. It's a 4-year that I learned from that.
So what my concern is historically in the past years, I see a pattern of behavior. I see you not responding several times to the board. On page D12, I see that you failed to appear 2 times in court. There was a bench warrant for $25,000 and for $50,000. That you have a history of just not following up, not showing up, not responding. If this board were to reinstate your license, you would have to have certain requirements put on you where you would have to respond to things very quickly, sent to you or communicated to you by the board. You would have to show up at certain times and certain places. And if you didn't, that would not be tolerated.
I understand that. I mean, I'm usually very punctual. That's something I was, like I said, the court days were because of work. Me responding back to the board, I do take fault for that. That was all me. I was just.
And so what I want to know is what is different in your life now that would cause you to respond punctually instead of exhibiting this past behavior? What is different with you or in your life now?
For me, I've learned, obviously, like I said, being prior military, I've always been punctual with anything. Being married now, having my daughter being 6 now, it's changed me a lot as far as showing the person. Like I said, those 4 years, I didn't work. Did it bug me? Yeah, it bugged me a lot.
And the Deputy Attorney General had talked a little bit about your work history, and you said that since Loma Linda VA, you then stayed at home and worked at home. You took care of your children.
I mean, nursing is something I've always been wanting to do. And
my question also, again, is if we were to reinstate your license, you would have to work as a VN. Are you prepared to go back and work out of sight of the home?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Do you feel you're healthy enough to do that? You've
Yes,
mentioned some health issues you've been dealing with.
Yeah, I was going through it, and actually that kind of helped me as far as a lot of, like I said, me working for Loma Linda at the time and seeing some of the signs and symptoms from patients. Me being prior military, I started putting 2 together as far as sometimes how I would act, and it's helped me a lot.
And my last question is, again, with your behavior of not responding, not showing up, and with some of the statements you've said about the DUI, appears that you may have a history of not taking things very seriously. And so I'm wondering, do you understand why it is both unprofessional and inappropriate and unsafe for a nurse to consume alcohol and then drive a car?
You know, that's something I did learn from that. Me knowing I should have known better. Would I put myself in a situation like that again? No, I wouldn't. I've learned from that mistake.
You drink at all anymore?
No, I don't. I was never even a big drinker to begin with. It was just, I had a few drinks, I went out, and that's what happened.
Thank you.
Hello there.
How's it going?
As I listen to your responses, it sounds as if, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you might see this as something you wish you did not have to do.
As far as what I'm going through right now? Or as far as the whole 4-year suspension?
The whole situation, and of course, appearing before us.
Oh yeah, something I wish I wouldn't have to go through, but I put myself in a situation. So, I mean, I'm just trying to do what's best for me as far as to try to get my license back and go back to work.
Getting your license back, and one of the things we understand, you have not been engaged directly in any work that is paid health care, that requires you to use any of the skills. Is that correct?
Well, I do healthcare for my grandma as far as the state pays me just to kind of take care of her, you know, take her to her appointments, give her back, monitor her blood pressure, stuff like that, her blood
But
sugars.
not as an LV?
Not as a VN, no.
Okay. And any coursework or any update?
I've maintained my CPR and my BLS cards, that's about it.
Given it's been some time since you practiced, if you were to be granted your license, what would you need to do to make certain you were competent in the skills required now?
Well, I've kept up to date so much as far as reading my own personal books, as far as medical history books. I mean, as far as diagnosis and stuff like that. But other than me practicing, I have not.
So the implications of technology and its use in the practice and dispensing of meds.
Oh, I've kept up to date with that. My wife is a registered nurse, so she lets me know a lot of the different stuff that goes on.
I see. You said, let me change this a little bit. You say you're not a drinker. If I heard correctly, you do not drink at all anymore.
I've never been a drinker. Actually, like I said, it was a one-time isolated incident that it's just happened. I put myself in a situation where I shouldn't have been.
So did I hear correctly? You do not drink at all?
Correct. I do not drink.
No drugs?
No drugs. That's probably why, like the officer told me at the time, it's probably why my alcohol level had jumped up so much, was because I'm not a drinker, that there was 1 or 2 alcohol drinks made my alcohol level go up.
So it might have been a judgment, bit of judgment that was impaired? Is that what I'm led to believe?
As far as myself, putting myself in that situation, or
Yes,
just
sir.
the driving? You know what, me getting behind the wheel, I didn't think I had a lot to drink, so yeah, it was a bad judgment call, my call.
And judgment is crucial in the work of an LVN. And taking time to make sure one thinks carefully in decisions. So hopefully you can see why we're concerned about the judgments or what we might view as lack of judgment.
Yeah, but I understand, but it's also a one-time incident that I put myself in. It's not like I put myself in those situations on a day-to-day thing. It was a mistake I made. Did I learn from it? Yes. Have I put myself in a situation again? No, I have not.
So it was not a lack of judgment not to show up for court. It was not a lack of judgment not to respond to the board.
Showing up at court what had to do with work. Responding to the board, that was my fault. I was trying to get the final word from the judge as far as getting it dropped like it did, and that's what I was trying to show. I understand that's my fault for not replying back, and I understand that next time, any time pretty much, I need to reply in a timely manner.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for
Afternoon.
coming today. Very difficult to sit
Oh, yeah,
in
it is.
hearings and to say over and over, like, I made a mistake.
And it is because, like I said, I've had the last 4 years. I can't blame anybody but myself. So it's just, I'm just trying to do what's, move on from that and try to get my license back is all I'm trying to do.
And I heard that you stopped working in Loma Linda because you had PTSD. Was this due to military service?
Yes.
And what kind of work did you do to work through this diagnosis?
I started seeing a psychiatrist at the VA Loma Linda. I just actually recently got diagnosed 6% service connected from the military from prior incidents in the military.
Thank you so much for your service.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate it. And there was also a discussion about how you did not respond to the board because you were waiting to get a final outcome.
Exactly.
Was this decision happening during your treatment for PTSD?
Yes.
You think is fair judgment for someone to say that you do not take things seriously?
I do take things very seriously, actually. I just think it was just a lack of judgment in my call.
So for 4 years, you have not done any phlebotomy work?
No.
Have you, and I'm not an LVN, so I'm just going to talk to a few things. Have you taken blood pressures?
Yes. I've done blood pressure, blood sugars, head to toe checks, pretty much, communicate with my grandma's doctors, her renal doctor, her physician, her cardiologist, and stuff like that.
Are you prepared to maybe take a class or volunteer to update your practice?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Do you have the financial means to do so?
Yes.
If you were to find a job, do you know where? And
I spoken with my prior boss, and he said he would be willing to write a letter to me to go back because I actually did volunteer to quit.
thank you. That's all for me.
Good afternoon, Mr. Otero.
Good afternoon.
You indicated you had a history of PTSD and you had psychiatrist, is that
Correct.
right?
Correct.
What were the dates of attendance with the psychiatrist?
It's been over the last 5-6 years.
So you're continuing
I'm
to see
still
the
seeing my doctor,
psychiatrist?
correct.
The reason I'm asking is in the air, I'm sorry, in the, thank you. The reason I'm bringing that up is on A6 of the petition, there's a section at the bottom called therapy. Are you currently receiving counseling or treatment by a psychologist, psychiatrist, or therapist? And there's nothing here.
Yeah, I thought that it was due to the alcohol incident, and that has nothing to do with that. It has to do with my PTSD.
So you misunderstood the question?
Correct.
And the question is, are you currently receiving counseling or treatment?
Yes.
The other issue I wanted to inquire about is you entered a plea on the 23-103. Based on the documentation, it looks like September of 2013. Is that right?
Can you say that again?
When did you enter a plea on the charge?
I don't recall. I just remember showing up at the court date on 9/11. The defendant going in, coming back out, and just telling me that the DUI got dropped, that it was just a driving reckless, and that I was just basically just speeding and just had to pay the fine.
Okay, September 11th, 2013, according to the records.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
Which was well before and shortly after the accusation was filed.
That's why when I sent them the paperwork, after I got that, that's when I received a letter saying that they were going to take my license.
By that point, since there was no response from you regarding the service of the accusation, and there was no response, then a default was entered, right?
Right, and that's why on my petition to reconsideration, I had showed them the paperwork they had filed on September 11th when everything got dropped.
Okay, so why is it now you're applying for reinstatement?
I actually reapplied in a year after it got suspended, and I was denied. Because when I was first told about the suspension, they told me I can reapply within a year. I reapplied within a year, and I was told no, that I had to wait the whole 4 years. I didn't want to wait 4 years.
Okay, and currently your assistance with a family member, is that through the IHSS program?
Correct.
So you're actually technically an employee, or what's
Yes.
your understanding is the relationship? Because we didn't have that documentation in your petition.
Okay, it was just started recently.
You know, do you recall when that was?
A few months ago, 3-4 months ago.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Otero.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to reiterate my thanks for your service. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, here's my concern. I sense right now frustration from you. Let me finish. I know this is frustrating. I almost have this vision of you. We give you back your license, and then one day you have a real bad day at work, and you throw your gloves on the table and you walk out. You storm out. You're again frustrated.
No, I'm more frustrated because I'm the one that put myself in a situation. I have no one else to blame, and it's like I blame myself for it, obviously.
Okay, now, if we were to grant you your license, this isn't over. I want to reiterate what Board Member James Perez said, which would be you would be then under most likely a probation that would be extended for years. You would be responsible for filing paperwork and getting signatures. I'm not sure if you would have to do alcohol testing. I don't know. But I'm just saying there's going to be a lot of requirements that would come out of being reinstated. Are you prepared for that?
Yes, sir.
Tell me what's prepared you for that. Why am I?
Like I said, obviously, how I got myself in this situation was the bad judgment from the alcohol. Second, I didn't reply to the board on time, which is again my fault. And that's what got me into this whole situation by not replying and letting the board know what had happened.
As nurses, we have to communicate. It's imperative that we're able to communicate and not be overwhelmed by ego and emotion.
And trust me, I've learned that. That's 4 years of knowing that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Given a normal course of events with one DUI that you're fighting and no other criminal history, really nothing going on in your life, the likelihood that had you responded it would have went very differently for you.
And that is something, trust me, I kick myself in the butt.
I'm sure you do. I can sense that you do. The part that is difficult is, and it kind of goes along with what has been said to you by a number of us. It's difficult for me to discern your frustration with yourself and your frustration with a process. And that may be, and then it's further a little bit complicated by the PTSD that you're still going through. The process over the next few years would be cumbersome. And we would need assurances that you're able to withstand that without throwing your hat in or reverting to some other behavior. And that's my hesitation.
Well, the PTSD had nothing to do with the alcohol. It was just, like I said, I was going through counseling at the time. It was just I had decided to go out with a friend. I had a drink, and I got pulled over. Like I said, I'm not a big drinker. I wasn't even really expecting to drink. I was more like, okay, I'm the one driving. I had 2 drinks, and it raised my alcohol level to 0.7.
I'm not concerned with your alcohol use either. I believe you when you say you're not a drinker. I mean, I'm not concerned with it at all. And there really isn't any point for us as a board to be concerned with it because we would test you for it. We can monitor that. What we can't monitor are the other things, the bad judgments, the frustrations, the being mad at yourself, the PTSD. Those are the things that
Well, the PTSD, I do take medication for that, so that's under control. I'm mad at myself because of the situation. I'm not mad at myself now, 4 years later. I'm just mad at myself because I put myself in that situation. I'm not, do I hold remorse for it now? No, I mean, I'm mad at myself for doing that, but I'm not like, like poor me.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Like to state anything else to the board in summation at this time?
I would just like to let you guys know I am very sorry for, me putting me having to be here, take up your time pretty much. I did learn a lot in those 4 years, At first, like I said, I kind of blamed myself for putting myself, but it's a mistake that I did make. I take responsibility for that. I've learned from it. I've made sure that I never put myself in a situation like that again.
Okay, and
No, thank you.
all right, Mr. Otero, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll go off the record. I'm just going to ask aloud, how long will the board want for their lunch recess? We're going to recess for 1 hour. The next hearing will be reporter. Ready? Go on the record, please. And good afternoon. We're now continuing hearings before the Board of Vocational Nurses and Psychiatric Technicians. And we're welcoming at this time Deputy Attorney General Joshua Eisenberg, representing the Department of Justice for the remaining 3 cases. We have a quorum present. The petitioner at this time is Mr. Daniel Ross Santos. Mr. Santos has vocational nurse license VN 254584. This is a matter that has the Office of Administrative Hearings case number 2018-050103. Mr. Santos has filed a petition for reinstatement. invite Mr. Eisenberg at this time to provide board members with an overview and summary of this case. Mr. Eisenberg.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Joshua Eisenberg. I'm a Deputy Attorney General. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I am here to ensure the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. I've provided the judge and petitioner has a copy, as well as the board members, of petitioner's exhibit, which includes the following documents. Section A is the petition for reinstatement and the supporting documents. This includes the petition for reinstatement of license. Beginning on A11 is an email with attachments, also in response to the questions on the petition, including a response to Section 3, a response to Section 9, and a response to Section 10 of the petition for reinstatement. Section B includes petitioner's license certification. Section C is the notice of hearing and related correspondence, and Section D is the board decision. At this time, I offer this packet into evidence as Exhibit 1.
1 is in evidence.
Thank you. I'll now provide a brief summary of petitioner's license history with the board. On or about December 1st, 2010, the board issued vocational nurse license number 254584 to petitioner. Said license expired on May 31st, 2012. On June 11th, 2013, the board filed accusation number VN-2011-908 against petitioner, alleging the petitioner was subject to discipline in California due to an August 30th, 2011 criminal conviction for identity theft. The accusation also identified that the petitioner procured a license by fraud and knowingly made a false statement on his application for a vocational nurse license. Finally, the accusation alleged that petitioner engaged in general acts involving dishonesty. The circumstances of the petitioner's criminal conviction are that on November 15, 2007, respondent used the social security number of another individual without consent and fraudulently purchased a car in Westminster, California. Additionally, it was determined that respondent procured his vocational nurse license with the board by fraud and knowingly made a false statement on his application, which included a fraudulent social security number that did not belong to petitioner. Effective September 4th, 2014, the board adopted a stipulated surrender of license and issued an order, accepting the surrender of respondent's license and prohibiting petitioner from petitioning for reinstatement for a period of 3 years. Because the burden is on petitioner, I have no further statements at this time, but would reserve the right to question petitioner.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenberg. Did you receive a copy of Exhibit 2?
I did receive a copy of Exhibit 2 prior to going on the record.
Right, as did board members. Do you have any objection to 2 being considered by the board?
No objection.
2 is in evidence. Mr. Santos, I'd like to administer an oath to you. Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? As before, the microphone, it's important that
I do,
close.
sorry.
You've observed hearings before, so this is your opportunity to make an opening statement, and when you're done, I'll ask Mr. Eisenberg if he has questions for you. You may proceed.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. First, I would like to start by apologizing. I know that what I did was very wrong at the time. Unfortunately, I came into the country as illegal. What I wanted to do is I wanted to better myself. I wanted to better my life, and I unfortunately, if you want to work, you need a number which at that time, I didn't know what else to do. I got an illegal social security number from a seller on the street, and I used it to work, and like they mentioned, I used it to purchase a car. I would like to emphasize that at no moment I changed my name or I meant to hide anything bad about myself, but rather I just wanted I was trying to make a living and trying to better myself. So when I applied for the vocational license, I also used the number because, like I said, the moment I didn't have anything to put in that doesn't make it any right. I know it's totally wrong. Unfortunately, that was my situation, and that's why I did it. Ever since that happens, I went to through immigration processes, and now I'm a legal resident. I have a social security number. I have a good credit. I recently purchased a house, and I'm working as a emergency room technician. I'm trying to do the best I can. After the events that happened, I lost everything. I lost my wife, and I became a single father. And from being working in the nursing professional, I went back to work as a construction worker. And I did the best I can. I out to the test, and I became a single dad too. So it was really hard. In 2014, I tried to hire a lawyer, that helped me to come and place my case in front of you guys. But unfortunately, I feel like I was scammed because the lawyer promised me that he will fix everything, that he will look into all my paperwork and help me to figure out what it was. But as soon as this guy got my money, he was just like, sorry, we can't help. I can't help you. And that's how I surrendered my license without even coming to the previous meeting. Nevertheless, it was, like I said, I'm very sorry of my what I did. I know I was completely wrong. And I know that even though it was with the purpose of better myself and not to defraud anybody, it was wrong, and I shouldn't have done it. The board to consider, that I'm trying to better myself. I'm currently enrolled in a nursing program to become an RN. I already finished my first semester, and if you guys can take a look on the letters from my professors, they talk about my passion for nursing. I'm trying to do the best I can, work really hard every day. If you can review my evaluations from my managers, if you can review how I perform that, I think that'll be a better presentation of my character.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenberg.
Thank you. Mr. Rosas Santos, you're currently living in Wisconsin. When did that, and you procured a LVN license in Wisconsin, is that correct?
No, I don't. I don't have a LPN license on Wisconsin. I have a CNA license on Wisconsin. I also have a phlebotomy license nowadays. I recently took the test to become a registered phlebotomist.
When did your CNA license become active in Wisconsin?
I believe it was in 2015. I applied for reciprocity as my after my immigration process. I applied in California, and I was granted a nursing assistant license. And once I moved to Wisconsin, I just applied for reciprocity.
When you had obtained your CNA license in California, had the proceedings, both the immigration and criminal proceedings, been completed?
Actually, when the first time I got my CNA license, it was the same case. My story begins when I was working in a nursing home, and I was working as a janitor. And I noticed that a lot of the patients, especially Spanish patients, don't speak English. And I noticed that there is always that part, nursing is like we say, it's an art and it's a science, right? Science, we need to be competent, we need to study hard, and we need to know what we're doing. But it's also an art, it's the part of caring. And I noticed that a lot of people don't care. So I was always translating, because sometimes the patient will come to the nurse and says, tengo dolor, I'm in pain. Unfortunately, the nurse wouldn't understand, and they say like, yeah, sure. They wouldn't do anything, and I was always getting involved. So I learned about the nurse assistant training and I went to school and I became a nurse assistant. That's the first time I ever joined the nursing profession. But like to answer your question is yes, I was a CNA usually also using the social security number that wasn't real, or it was a fake social security number. After I come back with my immigration status, I applied to the Department of Health, and they granted the CNA license back.
And when you were granted reciprocity in Wisconsin, were you required to disclose the details regarding the revocation of your, or the surrender of your LVN license?
Yes, every time that I apply for something, I disclose everything because when I went to immigration process, they told me that every time I apply for something on the government, I had to disclose. No matter right nowadays, my record is being expunged. I have no criminal record in public, but I was told that every time I apply for something, a license or certification, I had to disclose that, and that's what I do.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but based on my reading of your petition, you're currently employed in Wisconsin part-time as a phlebotomist and full-time as a patient care attendant. Do you intend to practice as an LVN in the state of California?
Actually, I work as a phlebotomist part-time. I also work as a full-time in the ER as a emergency room technician. And I am currently going through the RN program. So what I'm thinking is that eventually when I'm able to graduate as a RN, I would like to come back to California. I moved away because I wasn't able to afford a living to being here, you know. Working as a CNA and having a son and a family is just very difficult. And plus, because I wanted to also better myself, I wanted to go back to school. There's no way I can afford to go to do all those things. California, as we know, everything is very expensive. Just to put it into perspective, whatever I pay for mortgage in Wisconsin is way less than what I used to pay here for rent. In short, yes, I would love to come back to California.
If your intention is to practice and obtain your registered nurse license, why is it important to you to have your vocational nurse license reinstated in California?
It is important because I want to make everything right. I wanted to come back and talk to you guys and let you know that I have changed and what I did I know is wrong, but I would like to, to have my license because I also am afraid that when the time comes for me to go through the process on the registered nurse board, they will ask me why you didn't do anything, why you wait until this time for you to talk to California. And I believe that it's my duty to come back and talk to you guys instead of just let it go and say, oh, I don't care because I'm going to be RN. I don't think that's the way it should be.
Are you aware that if the board grants your petition for reinstatement, you will be required to take and pass the licensure examination since your license has been expired for more than 4 years?
I am aware, and also I read on this part of the application that it says that the board has the power to waive the examination. And since right now I'm studying, I'm full-time school, so I'm having 15 credits. So I'm studying a lot. If you guys can waive it, it will be very nice. But if you think that I must take it, I can also and take the test.
Are you also prepared to pay fees associated with the exam and the initial license fee?
Yes, I am.
Why do you believe that honesty is particularly necessary in the field of vocational nursing?
Because we are advocates as a nurse, we are the advocates of the patient, and if we don't have honesty and if they don't feel it, then they won't be even able to share information that we need. and because we deal with information, sensitive information from our patients on a daily basis. Honesty is maintained in our profession.
Do you understand why the board would be concerned about your past history of fraudulent statements, specifically with respect to procuring your vocational nursing license in California?
I do understand, and I mean, like I said, I'm very sorry, and like I mentioned before, at that point I didn't have a choice. I did it to better myself. I didn't in any moment I tried to change my name or I pretend to hide anything. Rather, I was just better myself. I know it's not right, but.
So in light of the false statements that you had previously made on your application, why should the board treat everything in your current petition as true and correct?
Because I can prove it. I mean, I can back up everything with documentation. I can, everything that is there is, I had paperwork to prove it, and I will always come on forward. If you guys need me anything, I will always respond in timely manner.
In your petition, you provided supporting letters of reference. I believe there were 18 individuals who provided reference letters. I haven't had an opportunity to read all of the additional letters that you've provided in your Exhibit 2. But my read of the reference letters, it did not appear that any of the individuals had demonstrated that they were aware of your past criminal history and why you were seeking reinstatement. Did you inform those individuals as to the circumstances regarding your surrender?
Most of the individuals know about my case. Obviously, my managers, because every time I apply, I obviously disclose everything. The other, some of them just know that I lost my license because I didn't have papers and I use a fake social security number. In a way, they know. I never mentioned like I have this and that. But I in a way I disclose it. Yeah. So if you ask them, yeah, they will know that it's because I didn't have papers. Apply for the LPN license.
Are there currently any criminal or civil charges pending against you in this state or in any other jurisdiction?
None. And I would like to emphasize that this is the only time I ever been in trouble with the justice. A good life. Like I say, I have a son to be a role. I had to be a role model, so work and study and be a father. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I have no further questions for Mr. Rosas Santos at this time.
Thank you very much. Ms. Carpenter?
You've answered most of my questions already. Thank you. I have no questions at this time.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I read your petition and I read the letter you wrote, and that's in A35 through 37. That's where you answered the question about number 3 on your packet. I appreciate the candor that you included in your letter and the candor the detail you shared about your previous circumstances. And I want to assure you that the board is not here in any way to condemn you in any way for any immigration circumstances that you may have had. But I do congratulate you on your legal residency now, and I know that must have taken hard work, so I appreciate the work you put into that.
Very hard. I would like to also mention that in June 20, I'm able to become a citizen. I'm already filling out the application with my lawyer to become a citizen.
Congratulations. That shows me that you take this very seriously, that you take.
I take everything very seriously, and I try to educate myself as much as possible because my patients.
I appreciate that. I also see that you paid already your fees, $2,925 to the board. You've given us an abundance of evidence of classes you've taken to keep your skills current and in your current work in Wisconsin. I appreciate all of that sincerely. I noticed you did have a surrender of your license, and the question I was going to ask you is, why did you surrender? You mentioned something briefly about that. I think you said you were trying to fight it, but there was a lawyer scam or
I did at the time. I because I was afraid. I never seen anything. This time I did a lot of research before I come here, but at that point I was working on construction and I was barely making it. So
you gave money to a lawyer.
I had a kid, so I gave all my money to the lawyer, and the lawyer says, you know what, I'm gonna help you. This is gonna be okay. Have your license within a month. Don't even worry about it. And as soon as I make the payments, he's like, you know what? I just noticed that this is probably not gonna work, and we're just gonna surrender the license. And to be honest, at that time I was just so disappointed because my wife left me because I didn't make.
I see. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Sounds like you were deceived in some ways. You need a moment? Also, I'm referring to the letter you wrote, A35 to 37, and I'm going to read you something. It says, one must always follow the rules and strictly obey the law. Good intentions are not an excuse to violate the law. I realize that laws are there for a reason. I realize that it is wrong to provide untruthful information to anyone, especially to the Board of Nursing. Did you write that? That's very impressive to me, and it shows to me that you are taking responsibility for your actions.
I always try to do my best. Like I was talking to him earlier. At work, I noticed that we are very proficient. We know what we're doing. Some people is missing that part of caring. And at this moment, I'm working in a project about emotional intelligence. How incorporate that? How to care more for the patients, to treat not only physical illnesses, but also taking care about the psychological part of the problem, and not only with the patients, but also to the families.
So the question, I have two questions. You're currently living in Wisconsin. You are enrolled in an RN program, or you're taking prerequisites?
I am already enrolled.
Mm-hmm. Have you been told by the RN program that you need to have your VN license here reinstated before you can become an RN in Wisconsin?
No, nobody ever asked me, but I want to do it because I feel that is the right thing to do.
Did you let the school know that you do have a surrendered license in California?
I did, and I write a letter to the board just because I was told, like I said before, I was told that I always had to disclose that.
What feedback did they give you? Did they say it might be a problem getting your RN in Wisconsin, or?
According to the director of the program, they say it's no problem because I don't have any public records and everything should be okay. That's what I got. That's the response that I got.
Because here's the one potential roadblock we may have. Usually when we reinstate licenses in California, one of the terms usually is that you would have to work as a VN in your license capacity in the state of California for at least 6 months, 20 hours a week. Is that possible for you? Could you come back to California and work as a VN?
No, I don't think that I can do it right now because right now, like I said, I'm full-time employee and full-time school. So
that's what I see.
If possible, I would like to, transfer my license. It's not that I don't want to. I would love to live in California. Wisconsin has 7 months of winter, really cold winter.
But you are not a PN in Wisconsin. Have you tried to become an LPN in Wisconsin?
No, I won't. I need to fix everything here before I can move anything to Wisconsin. That's my rationale. That's the way I think.
Okay. You're working as a CNA and a phlebotomist in Wisconsin, yes?
Yes, I work as a ER technician based on my CNA license. That's what they ask. The requirement is either you are a EMT or you are a CNA. So The paperwork that I'm using, yes, a CNA.
In your RN program, do you participate in clinical hours? Do you go to facilities and train
Yes.
as an RN?
Mm-hmm.
How long is your program for?
It's 20 months.
When will you graduate?
August of next year. I just finished my first semester, but it's an accelerated program. So I'm already on my second semester, and I'm taking as much credits as I can.
Thank you.
No questions at this time?
Thank you so much for coming. I commend you for your hard work. I commend you for being a role model to your son and to all the immigrants that come into this country to try to make a better living for themselves and to be better. It seems like, from what Samantha just mentioned, that even if we couldn't provide you with a license if you can't work here as an LVN, do we need to check that, or?
He can't be on active probation unless he resides here in the state. So if he's living out of state, his probation would be tolled until he returned to California. There is a work requirement also that he has to be employed for at least 6 continuous months, at least 20 hours a week here in the state at some time during the 3 years.
All right, for the record, could you state your name for the...
My name is Jay Browdy. I'm the discipline unit manager for the board.
Okay, is counsel for the board, will he or she be present during the closed session?
Yes, he will.
It would be my suggestion that these matters be raised in closed session. There may be other solutions that you are not yet aware of. That was not maybe the best time.
Great.
Thank you.
So if this was true, would you be able to find a practical way to return after your RN? Is this feasible in your life in 20 months when you finish your RN to come back and execute your LVN duties?
Yeah, well, my plan is to come back to California eventually. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to leave California to begin with, but in order for me to be able to afford to go to school and everything, and to answer your question before, I cannot come back right now because I'm already on the program, and those programs are really, really expensive, and I already signed for all the loans. So
I understand. It just the last thing, one of the things that we tried to learn about when we tried to reinstate licenses, have you made changes? Are you ready to live as without fraudulent social securities and identity theft, and are you ready to live?
I am. Yeah, I am. I'm, like I say, I have mainly, for society, but I have my son. I want to be a role model. As the times nowadays is like everybody's criticizing Mexicans are this, Mexicans are that. I want to prove that it's not true. That there is a lot of hardworking people that comes to this country and wants to make it great too. Yeah, I will never do anything like that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Rosa Santos, good afternoon. In your petition application at page A37, you indicated that your, quote, illegal act was done so that I could work and make an honest living.
It's a contradiction, right? I know. I mean, I was trying to work. That's what I meant by that. That I was trying to work and I was trying to get a car that I can go from point A to point B. That I didn't try to, like I said, deceive persons or say that I was something that I wasn't. Like a different name. I did use a number because the time needed to, and I said that it's wrong.
That bears on part of my question, which I haven't asked yet. But the question is, can you make an honest living following an illegal act after appropriating either a license or employment based on that illegal act?
Like I say, but in the past, it was a contradiction.
I'm sorry, it was what?
You are asking about the past, right?
Right, I'm asking about your statement here, A37.
Mm-hmm. And what I say is, like, I understand there is a contradiction, that one cannot do something illegal and say that you are doing something honest because it's a disagreement.
Well, that was your statement, though.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand, and what I was trying to communicate is that I didn't intend to hide a criminal activity that I did on the past, or I didn't try to steal anything from anybody. That I was just trying to make a living.
You didn't steal anything from anybody?
Like I say, I know that you are referring to the number, and yeah, that's unfortunately the case that I did use it, and I cannot deny it.
Okay, so my question as a follow-up is, who are the victims, if any, when you appropriated the use of a social security number that was not yours?
I suppose that at that point will be the owner of the social security number, which I didn't know who it was.
Anybody else?
I suppose the board and the dealership that I bought the car from, and basically in basic society, and that's a product of being here also illegally, you know.
I have nothing else, thank you.
I have no question.
I have no questions.
Okay, thank you, board members. This is your opportunity to make a closing statement. Mr. Eisenberg, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Nothing further. Thank you, Judge.
Santos?
Once more, I would like to apologize for any harm that I might cause society in general. Like John says, that how can it be, you know, that I'm making an honest living if I'm doing something dishonest? Unfortunately, you know, at that time I just didn't know better. And now that I do, I feel really, really sorry, and I apologize. I know it's no nearly enough that I can do, but I will try to pay back by being a productive part of society and to do my very best to take care of my patients.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Off the record,